Some teens want to grow up too quickly for their own good.
I like you.
And they won't let anyone stand in their way.
So we're doing this alone.
A lovesick girl wants her boyfriend more than grandma.
The only way that we're going to keep this love going is to eliminate Betty.
A lethal alliance turns a straight-A student into a dangerous dropout.
I hate it here.
Now, Keisha went from being a Girl Scout to a bad scout.
And daddy's little princess becomes mommy's predator.
People don't die quickly. They will put up a struggle.
These deadly women trade their school books for brutality. They are mean teens. The rural community of Saugerties in the Hudson Valley, New York, 1993. Betty Gardner is mom and dad to her two granddaughters, 12-year-old Wendy and 10-year-old Kathy.
She loved them. Everyone around said they were well-fed, well-clothed, well-educated.
That's lovely and neat.
Betty believes children need love and discipline in equal doses.
Grams, my results.
She was very strict with the children.
She lived by the old adage, spare the rod, spoil the child.
Oh my, all A's and B's.
Grandma's efforts pay off. The girls excel in school and music, especially Wendy.
She was an overachiever, a kid to watch as she went into middle school and then into high school.
She was doing her homework, she was playing soccer, she was playing the flute.
In the summer of 1994, young Wendy's life turns upside down when she connects with a local boy, 15-year-old James Evans.
He was 6'2", 175 pounds. He was known as a bully in the neighborhood. He constantly was in trouble with the police.
He certainly was a rebellious teenager, almost the cliche of a rebellious teenager.
Wendy is drawn to the wild boy.
Wendy was ripe for the pickings for anyone to come along, especially a young boy, and show her attention.
Hey, wanna go for a walk?
Things suddenly sparked between them, and the world totally changed for Wendy, and probably for James, too. Wendy went from being a child to suddenly being someone who was the center of somebody else's universe.
Wendy wants to be a rebel, too.
Wendy suddenly blossomed into a young woman. To say that she was sex-starved, I think, would be over-exaggerating, but she was certainly very interested in James.
Come on, you two.
Wendy loves her new look. Betty does not. She sees a mirror image of her own wayward daughter, the girl's mother.
Her mother was an addict and had been a prostitute.
Both Wendy's parents were drug addicts, heroin addicts actually, and alcoholics.
Fortunately, Grandma gets custody of the toddlers and thinks she's rescued them. Now she's worried.
Betty would unfortunately tell Wendy that she was going to end up like her mother.
You don't want to end up like your mother.
She frequently taunted Wendy that she was going to grow up to be just like her wretched mother. That's a real bad thing to say to a kid.
Grandma's perfect little girl is gone. Day and night.
She got this thrill out of turning from a good girl into a bad girl.
Wendy? Wendy, get in here now.
Betty Gardner was alarmed that Wendy was seeing any boy, let alone James.
Where have you been?
It's none of your business.
How dare you?
The once loving relationship is now volatile.
James Evans had some sort of potion that turned her from Dr. Jekyll into Mr. Hyde.
The teen lovers are inseparable.
They started having sex when Wendy was still 12 years old. She really liked sex. They had sex once or twice a day for the whole time they were together. Their relationship was like Velcro. Once they attach to each other, they're attached to each other completely.
I need pee.
I'll come too.
Betty repeatedly did things to try to keep them apart.
You're not going. You can't do anything. I can put you in care.
Betty finally realized that she just couldn't deal with Wendy on her own. And so she started looking for help.
Betty turns to the New York family courts. She wants Wendy declared a person in need of supervision.
It's an extreme step. It's a very big step for someone who's raised a child for 10 years.
Wendy's grandmother is essentially saying, I give up, I can't control her. That would mean Wendy would be taken out of the house.
She thought that it was going to be the end of her relationship with James.
Wendy will never let that happen. 1994, the rural community of Saugerties, New York. For a decade, Betty Gardner raises her daughter's children, 13-year-old Wendy and her younger sister, Kathy, 11.
I don't think that she realized how big a responsibility it was going to be.
Betty's relationship with Wendy hits rock bottom when the local rebel, 15-year-old James Evans, comes on the scene.
Sometimes young girls are attracted to the bad boys because that allows them to be bad as well. And that's exciting for them.
At Christmas, Wendy runs away to James's home. As a token of Christmas spirit, Wendy calls her grandma to let her know where she is.
Hey, Grams. Merry Christmas. I'm at James's. Is it okay if I stay here again tonight?
This is not acceptable to her. She told her to come home.
I'm staying here no matter what you say.
This did not make for a merry Christmas time.
What had been a terrible relationship with her grandmother, it just goes into a totally different dimension. And she starts talking to James about what they can do.
The brooding teens now plot their next move. They start crazy talk about murder.
Just want to kill her so bad.
If I kill her...
They talked about it for 3 solid days. She egged him on.
But I don't think you'll do it.
On a bet.
They kind of reinforced each other as they discussed the possibility of killing Wendy's grandmother.
December 28th. The teens pay Betty a belated Christmas visit.
Wendy went over, turned off the TV.
What's going on here?
Shut up.
Get out of my house.
So we're doing this as well.
Just do it.
Little sister Kathy is dragged upstairs.
The last thing Kathy saw was her grandmother with James Evans' hands around her neck.
To drown out the sound of her grandmother dying, Wendy started singing Jingle Bells.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
Wendy Gardner didn't try to stop him. Just think about hearing noises coming from a woman who's being strangled and not doing anything about it. He took a kite string, wrapped it around her neck, and put his foot on the back of her neck to hold her head down, and pulled and pulled and pulled until she started bleeding.
Is it done?
Yeah, she's gone.
With Betty out of the way, the teens take control of the eyewitness.
That's when they started threatening Kathy. That if she told anyone or she did anything about this, or if she screamed or ran away, they were going to kill her too.
James and Wendy drag Grandma's body to the garage and dump it in the trunk of Betty's car. Then celebrate in the most macabre way.
They did something very strange.
I think the fact that Wendy and James were able to have sex right at the crime scene tells me that they just didn't give a damn.
For the next 3 days, the murderous duo goes shopping with Grandma's money in her car.
I don't know what James and Wendy were thinking in those next couple of days, but they certainly weren't thinking of getting away with the crime. Grandma was in the trunk.
Kathy is never out of their sight.
They threatened Kathy. They said to her,
How's it feel to be with two murderers?
the little girl was terrified.
Early in the morning of New Year's Eve, Kathy gets a chance to escape.
Kathy wakes up and realizes that everybody else is asleep. And she's a brave, brave kid because she managed to get out of the house and run over to a neighbor's house. That was the beginning of the end.
Horrified neighbors call the police, and soon Wendy tells all.
She goes through detail after detail. It was cold-hearted. It was blood-curdling. It was no remorse. It was just horrible.
In July 1997, James Evans is convicted of second-degree murder. He is sentenced to 9 years to life in prison and is eligible for parole in August 2013.
James did the deed, but Wendy put the string in his hand.
I don't think James Evans would have ever killed Betty Gardner if it wasn't for Wendy.
In February 1997, the jury agrees. Wendy Gardner is also found guilty of second-degree murder. Her sentence, a minimum of 7 years, 10 months.
This was not a crime of passion. Wendy killed the one person in the world on whom she was dependent for shelter, food, love, and care.
In 2004, at the age of 23, Wendy is released. Some believe she's grown out of her problems and is a changed woman.
Wendy Gardner worked very hard on rehabilitating herself and tried to become a contributing member of society. I don't think that we should have to fear her anymore.
Others have their doubts.
Wendy, I would never trust. I would never trust her. She's got a bad seed in her.
When teenage angst boils over,
But I hate it here.
What it says to me is rage. I hate you, I hate you, I hate you.
And finds a willing accomplice.
She was just trying to help a friend.
Something wicked is sure to follow.
Almost the ultimate act of betrayal. Almost something out of Shakespeare.
Max Meadows, Virginia, a close-knit mountain community.
It's a great place to raise a family. We have good schools. Everybody knows everybody. Violent crime is way out of the norm here.
A perfect place for single mother, 40-year-old Vaughn Thomas,
Cookies and cream or chocolate?
and her daughter, 12-year-old Nakisha Waddell.
I'm thinking both.
By all appearances, she did have a normal family life.
In fact, she had a rather good one.
There you go.
Everyone's crazy about this movie.
I hope it's funny.
She was a Girl Scout and a good girl.
In 2002, Nakisha has everything going for her, except her size.
Nakisha was a large girl. She was probably close to 6 feet tall. I think other kids picked on her, made fun of her at school because she was so big.
Being the target of bullies takes an emotional toll. Nakisha is soon an unhappy girl.
And she ended up hanging out with people that just accepted her.
Don't worry about them.
She finds a friend and protector
I'm Annie.
in 15-year-old Annie Belcher.
You could tell that she had more of a deviant mentality than Nakisha.
Lonely Nakisha latches on to Annie and her idea of fun.
What?
Don't want me. Open the door.
But Nakisha's mom feels she's losing her daughter.
What are you two up to?
Nothing. The only thing you allow me to do?
Vaughn was a loving mother. They was actually pretty close up until the time she started running with Annie Belcher. Annie and Nakisha both had some problems at school. Their grades had began to slip. It was suspected that they were beginning to use some illegal drugs.
By the age of 14, Nakisha is no longer the outgoing achiever. She's a disobedient dropout.
You can't lie here all day.
Why?
Her mother did discipline her. She wasn't beaten or anything of that nature, but her mistakes were pointed out to her.
It's not unusual for teenage girls, especially between 13 and 17, to have a lot of conflict with their mom. It usually gets worked out one way or the other. Not this time.
Angry with her mom, Nakisha fantasizes her absent dad can solve her problems.
Nakisha did have contact with her biological father. There may have been some perceived resentment from Vaughn that she was talking to her biological father too much.
It's not unusual for a teenager who's having trouble with a single parent that they're living with to fantasize how wonderful life would be with the other parent. But that almost never works out.
Nakisha's fixation with her dad fuels the fire between mother and daughter.
I want to move in with Dad.
Absolutely not.
But I hate it here.
He left you when you were a baby.
When her mother said Your father never wanted you. It was more than she could bear. And it destroyed her fantasy, and she wanted to destroy her mother for saying it.
You don't understand.
Teenage anger is common, but the rage Nikisha feels is not.
I think it was just a lot of anger built up in her. Really a lot of anger over the course of the last year or two.
And it was more than Nikisha could take.
Max Meadows, Virginia, is a quiet mountain community. But in the spring of 2004, there is no peace in Vaughn Thomas's home. Her 14-year-old daughter, Nikisha Waddell, is going through the terrible teens. Nikisha seeks comfort online and meets her very first boyfriend.
He's a hunk, right?
She did not know this guy. She'd never seen this guy. But Nikisha spent a fair amount of time on the computer with this individual.
And she wanted to go visit with him, and her mother wouldn't allow her to do so because she was 14 years old.
How much money have you got?
Like 100?
Yeah. I guess Victor will pay for things.
Yeah.
But Nikisha is determined to go. She just needs to clean up a few loose ends.
And that's when they pretty much waited on the mother to come home.
On May 28, 2004,
Have you thought about this afternoon?
she says goodbye to her mom
A little bit?
for the last time.
Are you excited?
Oh, you scared me. Why aren't you at school?
Once he came in the door and found out that she had not gone to school that day, they got in a verbal argument there.
Because I'm running away.
You are ruining your life.
The weapon was a large hunting knife. It's quite long in length.
You don't know anything.
The victim retreated out into the yard to stab some more. Stabbings and cuttings are intensely personal crime. You have to be right up and smell the breath of the person that you're stabbing.
She's put about probably 30-some more stab wounds into her. And I think that came from all the anger built up in her. And she just wanted to make sure she was dead.
43 stab wounds is 42 more than is necessary to kill someone. What it says to me is rage. I hate you, I hate you, I hate you.
Friend Annie, hiding in the house during the murder, now helps clean up the mess.
Let's take her to the shed.
The two girls dragged the body into an outbuilding at the rear of the property and covered it up with trash.
Nikisha thought a lot about killing her mom, but she didn't think about what to do afterwards. That part eluded her.
The body is one problem. The other is a convincing story.
We should make it look like a burglary.
A rather poor imitation of a burglary. Burglars generally don't ransack and smash things.
Nikisha and Annie start a plan. They have no idea how to finish.
The plan was thought out, but disposing of the body was not. They were amateurs. They panicked.
The next morning, Nikisha decides she needs a final resting place for her mother, Vaughn. They try to cremate her with nail polish remover. When that doesn't work, they resort to a crude, shallow grave.
There were just a few logs and sticks lying across it. You could actually see flesh protruding from the grave. It was exposed to the air. The grave was that shallow.
Nikisha hides out at Annie's house. After 2 days, Vaughn's family is missing her. They call the police. This isn't a long investigation for Lieutenant Doug Tuck once he tracks down the victim's daughter.
I said, well, I need to know what's going on. We're trying to find your mother, Vaughn. And she looked at me and she said, she's dead. I killed her. And I said, would you please say that again? It sort of stunned me a little bit. I said, you're saying you killed her? She said, she's dead. I killed her. I buried her in the backyard. I didn't see any tears whatsoever. I was expecting her to break down and show some kind of emotion. She did not do that.
She wasn't sorry for what she had done to her mother. She was worried that she was going to go to jail.
Both teen girls are tried as adults. Accomplice Annie Welcher pleads guilty to second-degree murder and is sentenced to 26 years, with 11 years suspended.
I saw the girls on the day of the trial and still did not show a lot of remorse that I can remember. But
Nikisha Waddell pleads guilty to first-degree murder. In June 2005, she is given a 70-year sentence with 35 years suspended. She is eligible for release in 2038. So what made a 14-year-old girl slay her mother in such a brutal fashion? The tiny community of Max Meadows can still barely understand it.
the most shocking part of this crime to me was that there was no really clear motive, that there had been a few arguments up until this happened, but why would you commit a crime this horrific against your mother without having one specific event?
I think Nikisha was motivated to kill her mother at that moment out of anger. But the premeditation was that she simply wanted a better life and thought her mother was the cause of her problems.
When teenage brilliance,
A very bright, manipulative psychopath.
turns bad,
It shows anger, it shows hatred, it shows total disregard.
no one can stop the wrath.
It was a horrific, horrific time inside that house.
In 1995, 19-year-old Gina Grant is accepted to Harvard, the most prestigious university in the United States.
Gina Grant, cheerleader, first female president of her class. Huh, brilliant.
It's an outstanding achievement and fulfills a promise to her dad.
See, Dad, you knew I could do it.
Her journey to Harvard begins in Lexington, South Carolina.
I'm playing her mirror. I already know her lines. What a dream is here.
Dad Charles has grand plans for his precocious princess.
You'll study at Harvard. It's the best, and you're the best.
Gina was a very popular young girl. She was very likable, extremely intelligent, very, very bright.
But Dad won't see his daughter's achievements. He dies of cancer before Gina's 12th birthday. The loss of her husband is too much for Gina's mom, Dot.
When her father died of cancer, it seemed to throw the family into a downward spiral. She had a good job. She seemed to be a normal type of person. But when she went home, people said she drank, and she drank a lot.
She had a lot of problems after his death. Emotionally, physically, it worked on her a great deal.
Gina isn't old enough to understand or help Mom.
Turn that down!
It's not my fault you got a hangover.
But she throws herself into being the best at everything.
She was athletic. I think she played basketball, played tennis on the cheerleading squad.
Oh my Lord, did you see Sally? Yeah, I know. What a joke.
Then Gina meets someone who changes her life forever. 15-year-old Jack Hook is hardly Ivy League.
Ready to go when you are.
Jack was not a person that you'd want your daughter dating.
Troublemaker, petty thief. Not the ideal couple.
Gina takes Jack home to meet Mom.
Mom, this is Jack.
I think she chose this boy to upset her mother. The bad boy.
There was a difficult relationship there between Gina and her mother over the relationship with her boyfriend, Jack.
He's bad news.
I like him.
Well, you better start to unlike him.
Probably Gina's mother was right. She shouldn't have been with Jack.
But Gina's determined to see Jack and sneaks out whenever she can.
Where have you been? Why do you care?
Gina even gets more brazen, sneaking Jack into the family home.
She'd take her dog outside for a walk. And depending on what she said, Jack would know if the coast was clear or not for him to come into the house.
And this set the mother off. She didn't like that. And she tried to stop it. She tried to terminate it, put an end to it, see that it never happened again.
We're talking about a 14-year-old girl here, sneaking a boy in to spend the night. Of course Gina's mom would be upset by that. Wouldn't anybody be?
I think that boy became more important to her than anything. And that meant Mom might have to go.
1990, in Lexington, South Carolina. 14-year-old Gina Grant is in a standoff with her mom over her delinquent boyfriend. And her mom's taste for alcohol fuels Gina's antagonism.
I think her mom's behavior might have even embarrassed her.
September 13th, 1990. By nightfall, Dot is already drunk, and her focus is fuzzy. She's a sitting duck for a daughter hell-bent on death.
People don't die quickly. They will put up a struggle. The human body tries valiantly to stay alive. You get bloody. You feel the victim.
Gina's mother was beaten in the back of the head, in the front of the head, all over her arms as she was trying to defend herself.
The fact that there were 13 blows tells us the killer was venting her rage on her mother. Once she started striking her, she couldn't stop.
She could have been pounding rocks, but it was her mother's head.
The straight-A student doesn't flee or hide the body. She has a plan and calls boyfriend Jack to help.
And what's her plan here? Well, that her mother committed suicide.
Gina convinces Jack to thrust a knife into her dead mom's neck.
So much so that you can't pull that knife out of the neck without lifting the lady's body off the floor.
After Jack leaves, Gina calls the police and tries to sell her story of a tragic suicide.
I don't know what happened. She was just acting crazy, and then she had this knife in her hand.
And there she is on the floor with this knife in her neck and with a hand around the handle of the knife, as if someone wanted the officers to think that this woman had plunged that knife into her own neck. That's totally implausible.
The injuries Dot sustained could not have been caused by falling down a carpeted stairs. Basically, the crime scene didn't fit Gina's story.
But Gina thinks she's smarter than the police.
And she is toe-to-toe, nose-to-nose with these officers.
She fell down these stairs, and then...
She's not giving in. She's an intelligent young woman. She's a conniving young woman. She's a devious young woman.
When the evidence contradicts her, Gina just changes her story.
Oh yeah, she says. Let me tell you how it actually happened. And that is the telltale sign of what? A liar.
Gina then tries to blame boyfriend, Jack. But all the evidence points to a daughter brutally taking her mom's life.
Finally, the officers say, "You're not going home tonight. You're going to stay here in jail because we're charging you with murder."
It's then Gina introduces a new defense. She claims mom's abusive.
The strange thing is, Gina didn't share this information with anybody. So she was either keeping it all in or making it all up.
I don't recall anything in our investigation that indicated any violence or abusive behavior by either one of the two.
Gina Grant and Jack Hook appear before the family court in South Carolina. Jack pleads no contest to accessory after the fact to voluntary manslaughter and spends less than a year in juvenile detention. Gina pleads no contest to voluntary manslaughter. Her time behind bars to be decided by the State Juvenile Parole Board.
An indeterminate sentence to the juvenile prison, not to exceed your 21st birthday.
But just months after being locked up, Gina is out. A judge accepts her family's pleas that she would be better off attending a special school for troubled teens in Boston, close to family support.
They were down in South Carolina saying, we will help, we will help, we will help. Once they get to Massachusetts, within 6 weeks, they don't want anything to do with Gina Red. And they wash the hands of them. The system up there doesn't do anything, and she's out living on her own. Not serving a sentence, but living on her own.
Gina spends less than a year in custody for killing her mom.
Gina beat the system. Gina manipulated the system. The system failed in this case.
You gotta ask yourself, what is a human life worth when all you serve is months in jail for it?
Four years later, Gina gets the green light for Harvard.
In her application, she makes the claim that she's an orphan.
A teen orphan living on her own, achieving a place at Harvard, makes the newspapers.
Somebody sends Harvard newspaper clippings of what really happened. Once that happened, everything goes wild. It's an explosion. Well, what do we got here? What do we got on our hands? Harvard reaches a decision to withdraw their offer to let her attend.
Gina was smart enough to get into one of the finest universities in the world, but she wasn't smart enough to be truthful on the application. And that's what ultimately hurt her.
These deadly women were callous kids. Wendy Gardner used her love to get rid of Grandma. Nakisha Waddell said, "I hate you" 43 times with Annie Belcher's blessing. And Gina Grant unleashed her rage on the one who loved her most. None showed any mercy. They were mean teens. Not all women are made of sugar and spice. Some are made of poison. A mother wants to cash in on her son.
You know, it was a horrible, horrible situation.
A bookkeeper steals her way to murder.
It was brazen, it was careless, it was inexplicable.
And a rich teen indulges her temper.
See, that looks lovely. Yeah, but it's not the one I wanted.
She had money, beauty, she had it all.
These deadly women take lives without blinking. They have no mercy. August 2008. Russellville, Alabama, is small town, heartland America. Home to the Scott family.
On top.
Christy dotes on her youngest son,
The blue.
4-year-old Noah. 6-year-old Mason is more of a challenge.
No.
He had some appearances or some attributes of autism. He was on some sort of medication, and he's a lively child.
It's Noah's game.
Hey, what's going on? He just wants to play.
His father, Jeremy, has the patience to deal with Mason. Christy doesn't.
Her tolerance toward Mason and the way he reacted to things was totally different than how she treated Noah.
It's been that way since the day Mason was born.
We had several witnesses that had noticed how quick to anger she was with Mason versus how patient she was with Noah.
Can I have a go?
I can't cope with you. Play by yourself.
We started learning that she, I guess, disciplined Mason more than she did Noah.
I think Christy saw Mason as an object that was giving her a headache.
Christy's attitude to Mason is an open secret. The mom even fights with him in the schoolyard.
She and Mason Scott got into a huge argument. It was so bad, and the appearance of it looked so bad.
Don't you dare!
Christy actually pushed Mason away from her. And school officials actually had to come and intervene.
Hey, stop there! I'll take you.
And had to basically separate them and walk Mason into school themselves, and she walked back to the car very angry.
Other mothers might give a child like Mason special attention, but Christy just gets angry. In the early hours of August 15th, 2008, Christy runs to her neighbors for help.
She arrived at the door of her neighbor's home.
Call 911, my house is on fire!
And so, of course, they pick up the phone, call the 911. The husband starts to see if there's anything he can do.
Emergency. House fire.
Christy and Noah are safe. Husband Jeremy is out of town. But where is Mason?
Where's your other boy?
He's inside.
What?
It wasn't until over 2.5 minutes later that the neighbor called back to 911 and said, she just told me that her son is in the fire.
As a parent, I can't comprehend how that wouldn't be the first thing that would be said is my kid's in the fire in the house and it's on fire.
So for 2.5 minutes, they were reacting like it was a house fire versus a child is burning alive and you've got to run down there and try to save it.
That length of time in a burning house is forever.
Emergency services are quick to the scene.
I think everybody involved, was doing all they could do to try to, get the child out, but there was no way.
Little Mason's body is found next to his bed.
Mason died of smoke inhalation and burns, and it was a horrible, horrible situation.
The close-knit community rallies around the family. but at her son's funeral. Christy is acting strangely.
What a beautiful baby.
This lady said that she had her daughter there, and Christy was holding her little daughter. She said, Christy said the most unusual thing. Christy said, Noah has always wanted a little sister. Now maybe he can have one.
You hungry?
What do you think about having another child? I mean, Noah always wanted a little sister.
And Jeremy thought that was the wrong place and time to even be talking about that.
Who actually says that? Who has ever said that when their child was burned up in a fire a day or two before?
As well as planning her new family. Christy is expecting a financial windfall.
It's classic psychopath behavior to not be able to wait for something. I want it and I want it now.
In 2008, while the tiny community of Russellville, Alabama, mourns 6-year-old Mason Scott, investigators searching his fire-ravaged bedroom find something alarming.
This isn't supposed to be here. And what he had found was a smoke detector that was just laying on the floor.
The smoke detector is still working. It should have saved Mason's life.
You could have wiped it off with a rag and probably put it back on the wall and it looked brand new.
It looks like someone has disarmed it.
The smoke detector was determined to have been pulled off the wall. I knew somebody had killed Mason Scott.
Fire investigators, experienced ones, can smell an arson the way a shark smells a meal.
This is now a murder case. Investigators dig deeper and discover fire and Christy go hand in hand.
She did have a lot of fires in her background.
There was numerous fires reported at the father's house, at the grandmother's house, and even at previous residences of Christy and Jeremy's.
The vast majority of people go their entire life without ever suffering any fires. Christy had a lust for it.
3 years earlier, Christy's home catches fire twice in the same week. Arson is never proven, but where there's smoke.
2 fires in the same home just a few days apart. In my former line of work, we call that a clue.
I think it's the best policy.
As an insurance broker, Christy makes sure she has protection. And the day before Mason is killed, she tells her father to boost that protection.
I was thinking about taking another application policy on the kids.
But you got more than enough cover for them and the house.
She originally had a $75,000 insurance policy on Mason. And within 12 hours of the actual fire, she had went and upped it $100,000, which made it $175,000.
$100,000 life insurance policy on a 6-year-old the day before he dies is about as subtle as a brick upside the head.
You can never have too much. Thank you.
Police piece together what really happens on that hot August night.
I bought your favorite dessert.
Christy's husband is away. She serves Mason his last supper.
There we go.
His favorite dessert.
Is that yummy?
They say sometimes that a parent, before they kill or murder a child, will give them one of their favorite things or favorite items.
And then she tucks him in.
Are you ready?
Ready, Mama.
With an extra large dose of cough syrup.
It was double the amount that would be normally given a child of that age.
Christy keeps her favorite son, Noah, out of harm's way.
Good night, honey.
In her bed. Then she ignites her wicked plan.
Somebody had taken that smoke detector off the wall to prevent an individual or a person from being alerted or woke up. And the only adult in that home was Christy.
The thing that I guess that upsets me the most is just the fact that she could actually do that to a child, and then the fact that it was her child.
Fire death has got to be one of the most awful, painful ways. You know, she must have really, really not cared or hated her child to allow him to die in a fire.
Christy Scott denies everything.
I never have been more sure about somebody being guilty than I have on that trial.
In June 2009, the jury agrees. Christy is convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death by lethal injection. She remains on death row.
Fire did a lot for Christy. When she burned a house down, she got a new house. When she burned down her last house, she also got rid of a big problem, Mason.
Christy Scott showed no mercy for her firstborn child. Just an unquenchable desire to eradicate him and boost her bank balance.
It would take an incredibly heartless person to burn their child to death. I don't think Christy gave a whit for Mason.
A young woman with a bright future.
She was diligent, she was hardworking.
Takes the wrong path.
She had larceny in her heart, and there's no pill for that.
And walks it all the way to the bank.
She was consumed with greed for money and was prepared to go to almost any extent to get it.
January 1999, in Sydney, Australia. 21-year-old accounts clerk Janis Amatuzio starts the new year with a new job at the local car dealership.
Janis Amatuzio was the daughter of immigrant parents to Australia. She presented very well, she had a nice manner about her.
Can you save it on a disc?
She was diligent, she was hardworking.
Yeah, my course was all computer-based.
Great.
But appearances can be deceiving.
So how come you left the courier company?
I needed a change.
I can relate to that.
Sneeza has a dark secret. She'll do anything to hide.
Hi, I just need you to sign this invoice.
Sure.
6 months earlier, she worked for a courier company in the city.
So you enjoying the job?
I am. Yeah, I'm finding it rewarding.
Good.
Sneeza's rewards are more than her pay packet. She is defrauding the company. Not nickels and dimes, but cold, hard cash.
She had defrauded them of something like $100,000. What she'd done is she'd manipulated invoices that had been coming into the firm.
Sneeza thinks she's hit the jackpot. She decides to invest the money at her local casino.
How much did you win?
$3,000. Drinks on me. Oi! Over here.
She is known to spend $10,000 a day.
Sneeza's greed trumped her good judgment, if she ever had any.
For Sneeza, it's easy come, easy go. Until her superiors sniff out her daylight robbery. To her father's horror. A career-ending crime that could end in hard time.
Sneeza, how could you?
She was informed that her fraud had been detected and that the police would be involved.
I'm afraid we have no other option. We have to call the police.
Incredibly, she gets a last-minute reprieve.
I have money and I can pay you back.
I'll have to speak with my supervisors.
The company strikes a deal with Sneeza's father.
I don't understand this. Why Sneeza?
I promise I won't do it again. I'm so sorry.
Her parents went and mortgaged their home to get the $100,000 to pay off this company.
Management have agreed.
So their daughter wouldn't be reported to the police.
Sneeza steals 100 grand without punishment. It's all gain and no pain.
I'm sure that her parents had the best of motives, thinking surely she will learn her lesson from this.
Psychopaths tend to not learn from their mistakes, and Sneeza didn't either.
She has a taste for fast money, and she's hungry for more.
Within months, she was at it again.
Sneeza soon gains the trust of her new boss at the car dealership.
You working back?
Yeah, I'm gonna get through these invoices.
Good for you.
51-year-old accountant, Richard Peach.
He lived on his own. He'd worked for a long, long time as the finance manager. He was the sort of person that everyone liked.
Richard has no idea Sneeza's just been fired for fraud. She even has a reference from the company that she stole from.
It didn't speak about her in glowing terms, but it didn't disclose the fact that she had been responsible for $100,000 fraud.
When the coast is clear, she dons her apron of deceit and goes to work cooking the books.
What Sneeza would do was change the details of the company that the money was going to be paid to so that it still had the name of that company, but a different account number and branch number.
Sneeza inserts her bank details on the invoices, secretly siphoning the cash into her own account.
Nobody at the company suspected her of anything. Nobody would have looked at her and thought that she was engaged in massive fraud.
Sneeza could have made a good living and progressed well as an accountant, but stealing was much more fun.
In just 6 months, Sneeza plunders $180,000. Most of it ends up lost at the casino. She is slipping into addiction,
Sneeza was desperate for money and desperate to get away with the theft.
The stakes couldn't be higher. Sneeza is gambling with her freedom, and the odds are stacked against her.
It was a brazen act of fraud that eventually was going to be detected.
December 1999, Sydney, Australia.
This is the second time I've called, and I'm still waiting.
21-year-old Sneeza Suteski
Well, it can take up to a month to receive the payment.
steals $180,000 from her employer.
I'll look into it and get back to you.
Now she's in danger of getting caught.
Hi. Didn't expect to see you today.
If Sneeza had stolen smaller amounts of money over a longer period of time,
I've got to go through the invoices. It's probably just a banking error.
she might have gotten away with it. But her greed compelled her to do more and more and more, and it became noticed.
The boss is getting complaints that bills not being paid.
Oh, really? Well, is there anything I can do?
That's probably better if I look after it.
Sure.
She knew there was only a little bit of time left before her fraud would be detected by Richard Peach, and she'd be in trouble again.
Sneeza's parents have saved her from the consequences of her thieving ways in the past. This time, she needs another solution. She decides to have her boss, Richard Peach, attacked and beaten.
Found anything?
Not yet.
So he is off work for 2 weeks.
Bye.
See you.
During those 2 weeks, she would engage in a massive amount of fraud. And then, just before he was due to come back, she'd resign. That was the plan.
Sneeza goes looking for hired help to do her dirty work.
75 minutes late. Where are they? Relax.
A lot of women, when they want someone dead, don't want to do it themselves. So they hire someone.
You're sure we can trust them?
He's my boyfriend, and he wants some money.
And that's what Sneeza did.
Hello.
Hey, where have you been?
Sneeza's friend has connections in the drug underworld.
Sneeza?
She's introduced to a 19-year-old heroin addict.
Would you like a drink?
No, I'm good.
There was one meeting that they had where there was a particularly important conversation where they were discussing exactly what would be done to Richard Peach.
So when does this need to happen?
It has to happen before Christmas.
What she said was bash him, stab him, kill him. I don't give a F.
I don't know, as long as he doesn't show up for work.
What she was really doing there was giving the hitman a blank check. You do whatever you think is necessary. I don't really care.
December 20th, 1999. Richard is out for drinks with a friend. He has no idea it will be his last.
Sneeza was very much hands-on. She went into the club whilst the hitman waited in the car park. Sneeza rings the hitman on his mobile phone to give him the warning that Richard Peach is about to come out.
Hey,
Yep, he's on his way out.
Got it.
As he comes out of the club into the car park, there's a woman with him. There's also a security guard in the vicinity.
There are too many witnesses. Sneeza's hitman is forced to improvise.
So he drives furiously to Richard Peach's home because he thinks, I'll have a second opportunity here outside his home to attack him.
Richard is walking to his home like he's done 1,000 times before. He's utterly unprepared for this.
The hitman comes up behind him, hits him on the back of the head with a hammer, thinking that he will lose consciousness.
But Richard is stronger than he looks. He doesn't drop.
The hitman is so surprised, he pulls a knife out of his pocket. Stop! Stabs Richard Peach in the chest, severed his aorta, and Richard Peach died within several minutes from blood loss.
Richard bleeds out on the cold, dark concrete.
I don't know if Sneeza was motivated 100% by greed or she was desperate, but in the end, she killed.
Sneeza shows no remorse. She is callous to the core.
The fact that Richard Peach had died didn't dissuade her from continuing with her original plan of this massive fraud over the next 2 weeks.
She steals another $100,000. This final act of greed will be her last.
The murder of Richard Peach ensured that the full focus of attention of the police was on this company and why Richard Peach was attacked and killed.
The breakthrough comes with the hitman. Days before the murder, he was seen casing the victim's neighborhood. Police pull him in, and he talks.
The hitman was prepared to give evidence in court against her, and he did.
A month after the death of Richard Peach, Sneeza is arrested and charged with 1 count of murder and 9 counts of fraud. She pleads guilty to the fraud, but not to the murder. She argues she ordered a beating, not a dead body. But the law disagrees.
The jury found that she was responsible for his death, and they convicted her of murder.
Sneeza is sentenced to 24 years in prison. The stolen money is never recovered. Did she stash it? Or is it lost at the casino?
We may not know where the stolen money is, but fortunately, we do know where Sneeza is. An 8x10 cell.
A spoiled rich kid.
She'd sleep all day, and then she'd go out at night and party.
You have to take me!
Who won't take no for an answer.
She was starting to exude behavior that was violent.
I hate it here!
Turns teen rebellion into tragedy.
She had it all, and she threw it away in 1 moment.
Hollywood, 2001. The playground of the rich and famous, and those who want to be. One of the want-to-bees is 17-year-old Katrina Sarkisian.
She had a half-sister, Sabrina. She lived with her in a very exclusive Brentwood neighborhood in west side of LA.
Their wealthy mom, Angelique, wants the best money can buy for her daughters.
See, that looks lovely. Yeah, but it's not the one I wanted. Darling, it was too expensive. Yeah, but I want that one.
Angelique is reported to have just overindulged her children to the point where they had multiple mopeds, go-karts, motorcycles, just to get to the Starbucks to get a mocha.
Okay, we'll go back to the store tomorrow.
Katrina's life would be the envy of most teenagers.
This was exactly what Katrina did not need. Katrina needed structure and rules.
At home and at school, Katrina is like a runaway train.
She was a fairly normal kid up until middle school. And that's when trouble started to appear.
The little rich girl starts to run right off the rails.
What are you doing?
Nothing?
I can smell what you're doing.
Then why did you ask then?
My office now.
Katrina develops a passion for drugs and alcohol and a burning hatred for anyone who gets in her way.
She was starting to exude behavior that was violent, aggressive toward fellow students, making threats to them.
If you just give her another chance. Mom!
No amount of money can curb her wild behavior.
By the time Katrina started really acting out badly, it was too late for her parents to control her.
I hate it here.
Just a minute, Katrina.
No, I'm not coming back.
You look at it and you say, oh, there's a person who really needed somebody to help.
But Katrina's not listening. She just wants her freedom.
She eventually dropped out of high school at 16.
Now, Katrina answers to no one. She won't even get up in the morning.
Katrina.
Her mother described her as nocturnal. She'd sleep all day, and then she'd go out at night and party.
Her mother tries everything to help her daughter.
Katrina was on antidepressants for what her mother described as a sleep disorder.
I don't think Katrina had a sleep disorder. Katrina had a I want to go out to a club every night disorder.
Tonight, Katrina gets out on the wrong side of bed.
I need a lift. Well, I can't take you. I've got friends coming.
She wants to go partying, but Mom won't drive her.
How am I supposed to get there? I don't know. You have to take me. Trina, now!
Katrina had assaulted Angelique multiple times in the home.
Okay.
Hitting a parent is a line that should never be crossed. Katrina did it.
Across town, another teenage girl is also preparing for a night out. 15-year-old Deanna Moran is smart and sensible.
So, who's having the party tonight? Just a friend?
She was an all-star volleyball player. She played in water polo. She was in the track. She was on the honor roll.
What friend? Okay, a friend of a friend.
Deanna's been invited to a party in West LA. The all-star student can hold her own in a crowd.
I gotta go, Mom.
She was always the one standing up and defending her friends or anybody who was being bullied.
Bye. Bye.
Two strangers. Tonight, their paths will converge.
It's a high school party, no parents at home, lots of drinking. What could possibly go wrong?
November 17th, 2001. It's Saturday night, and in West Los Angeles, a party's getting started. A teenager's parents are out of town.
You have a backyard party with 15-year-olds and there's alcohol and maybe narcotics and mom and dad aren't there, that's going to be a setup for a problem.
It's not long until 15-year-old Deanna Moran has a run-in with Sabrina Sarkisian.
Deanna noticed that
Hey,
Sabrina is breaking some potted plants.
chill. This is someone's house.
She confronted her, said, you know, stop breaking other people's property.
What are you gonna do about it? I'm going to tell you to behave.
You can see how she would stand up for somebody else's property. From what everybody says, it's kind of the person she was.
Deanna stands up to the wrong girl. The athlete can win this fight, but has no idea what she's getting herself into.
I'm going to tell my sister about you.
Sabrina went over to the corner of the yard and called her older sister. Said, come over here. We gotta deal with this girl.
She pushed me down at this party I'm at.
You should watch out. My sister's crazy.
That sister is Katrina, high school dropout, drug abuser, and troublemaker. Katrina races to the party to defend her sister's honor.
Just from the behavior that we had seen, you can imagine how angry she would get.
Who pushed my sister?
Deanna has always stood up for what's right, and she won't back down.
It was me.
And Deanna, like Deanna does, daring Deanna, said it was me. You got a problem with that?
But this is no simple catfight.
It was just a quick punch, and all of a sudden Deanna's laying on the ground, and she was kind of gasping for air a little bit.
Deanna, what's wrong?
Her clothes were sticky, and they realized
she's bleeding. She's bleeding.
Deanna has been stabbed once through the heart. Katrina Sarkisian made sure she had the upper hand in this battle.
It was a knife whose purpose was to be hidden in someone's hand. Why did she have that?
I don't know what else Katrina would be doing with a knife showing up at a party other than to do harm.
I don't think there's anything Deanna could have said to Katrina to stop what was going to happen. Katrina wanted to kill someone.
The sisters are gone before anyone has time to react. The terrified teens don't call 911. They decide to take Deanna to the hospital themselves.
Somebody pulled up in a car and they said, well, let's just take her to the hospital.
We've got to get her to a hospital.
Which turns into be, when you think about it, quite a fatal mistake.
Without professional help, Deanna dies when she reaches the hospital. With dozens of witnesses, the police come straight to Katrina's door.
Katrina gets picked up by 2 detectives with the LAPD at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
So when was the last time you saw Deanna?
Her speech started to slur, and she was acting not normal.
I'm sleepy.
Katrina isn't just evading the questions. She's committing suicide.
She stopped breathing. We need an ambulance.
You can only imagine that this person sitting at home, being traumatized from whatever occurred at that party in her mind, being so tormented that she's going to down a whole bottle of pills and then go to the police station.
She's taken 43 antidepressants that morning. half that number is lethal. Just like her victim, Deanna, no one can help Katrina.
Within not even a 24-hour span, 2 sets of parents have lost their daughters. And it's just unspeakable. I think in both households, what was happening.
What started out as a teenage catfight ended up with 2 girls dead.
How am I supposed to get there?
Katrina Sarkisian couldn't be tamed.
Now!
Not by parents.
My office now.
School.
Who pushed my sister?
Or a stranger at a party.
It was me.
She was an explosion waiting to happen.
I think Katrina had some sort of rage within her that needed to be dealt with. If it wasn't Deanna, it would have been somebody else. It would have been some other tragedy.
She possessed everything you could wish for, except mercy.
Katrina had money, beauty, she had it all, and she threw it away in one moment.
These deadly women were cold, calculating, and selfish. Christy Scott burned her son alive for an insurance payout. Sneeza Suteski stole much more than money. And Katrina Sarkisian's temper took a teenager's life. All 3 cared only about themselves. They showed no mercy. Being the other woman is a bitter, lonely life.
My kids need me.
What about this kid?
Some turn rejection into rage. A girl from the streets plays Russian roulette with a married man.
For the first time in years, she was living the high life. She had it made.
A teen mom-to-be lashes out at her rival.
You stay out of this! It was just the ultimate episode of jealousy.
I wish I could stay here forever.
And one woman's obsession with another tears a family in 2.
Get off me!
She would have done anything to ensure that they could live happily ever after together.
These deadly women are love-struck and lethal, driven to evil because they refuse to play second best. When you dwell on the fringes,
she was the girl who was trying to find something better, didn't know how to get there.
Love can be cheap.
All Brandita wanted was someone to love her.
You threatening me?
And life even cheaper.
She knew that something awful was going to happen.
In Sylmar, in the San Fernando Valley, California, 1988, 52-year-old Joan Dolly's job is to bring joy to others.
She worked at the Hallmark store, so you can imagine she was a part of a lot of people's happiest moments as they go in there and buy their cards.
Dennis has been acting weird lately.
But Joan's own Hallmark moments are few and far between.
I think he's having an affair. Are you sure, Joan?
Her 32-year marriage to childhood sweetheart, Dennis, is losing its luster.
Dennis was retired Air Force. He looked like just the average Joe, the family man. He had kids at home.
Why were you so late last night?
An old friend turned up at the club.
Oh, really? An old friend.
As Dennis drifts away, Joan pulls on the purse strings.
You've been going through money like water.
Joan really kept tight reins on Dennis.
I earn it.
Not as much as you spend.
Dennis complained to people that his wife just controlled him. That, he wanted to buy certain things. He wanted a boat. He wanted a jacuzzi. She would always hold the purse strings. She'd always say, no, 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 no. You can't have that.
To earn a little spending money of his own, Dennis takes a part-time job at the local golf course.
People saw Dennis as a happily married man, but they didn't know about his secret life.
In his spare time, Dennis enjoys more vigorous pursuits.
Dennis frequented the prostitutes on Sepulveda Boulevard up in the San Fernando Valley, not far from their home.
Today, Dennis won't even have to leave work. 31-year-old Brandita Taliano walks right into his life.
Brandita was kind of a typical street prostitute, worked in the San Fernando Valley.
Hi. Do you work here?
I sure do, sweetheart.
Brandita is a heroin addict from the wrong side of the tracks.
She was the girl who was trying to find something better, but didn't know how to get there.
Maybe I'll call you sometime.
Do that.
Oh, you betcha.
Dennis does call, and Brandita sees her new customer as a ticket off the streets.
Here was this guy, this Air Force guy, this golf course guy who had a nice house. And maybe she felt, you know what? Maybe this is my turn.
Brandy revels in this extravagant new life. As the months go by, the bill goes up.
Something was happening with Brandy and Dennis far beyond a hooker and a John. I mean, he paid for her apartment, he bought her food, he got her a car.
Dennis spends all his time
You're an expensive habit.
and money away from home. 55-year-old Joan has had enough. In 1991, she's handed a ticket to freedom.
Joan had inherited $70,000 from her mother passing away.
And because it was left as an inheritance, it meant that it was all hers. She didn't have to share it with her husband. So that was her way out.
You're not getting the house.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
She was prepared now to move forward with the divorce because she could then afford to maintain her lifestyle without very much change.
So you expect to get all of your inheritance plus half of my assets?
Divorce means Dennis will lose everything he holds dear, his money and his mistress.
I think Dennis realized his financial life was about to be seriously affected.
He didn't want to be left with nothing. He didn't want to split his pension with her.
You threatening me?
Yeah, I am.
Dennis desperately wanted to prevent his wife from divorcing him because it would have financially devastated him.
On a spring morning in 1991, one of Joan's co-workers calls at their home.
Mrs. Dolly did not show up at the Hallmark store to work.
Joan!
Her friend, who was the owner,
Anybody home?
became deeply concerned and was unable to rouse anybody at the door.
So she let herself in the house and found Joan's body.
Joan has been bludgeoned to death. It looks like a bungled robbery.
The assumption is, well, burglars broke in and she was startled awake, interfered with the burglary, and they killed her to avoid her being a witness.
Under Joan's fingernails, forensics find human tissue from her attacker. But in 1991, DNA tracing is in its infancy.
They knew there was DNA there, and they'd hoped someday maybe that DNA would provide the answers to what happened.
Joan's husband, Dennis, had an early start at the golf course. The police call him home to break the sad news.
Dennis basically doesn't know anything at all about it. He has no clue how this could possibly happen.
Did your wife appear stressed?
Dennis is not behaving like a man in mourning.
He was absent a lot of emotion that one would expect, because your wife of 35 years had simply been brutalized in this fashion.
Days after his wife is buried, Dennis seeks solace in Sin City.
You got this in the bag.
I mean, this was his wife of 35 years. Who does that? Who goes on a Las Vegas holiday right after she's been brutally murdered?
Casino surveillance cameras catch Dennis with a special someone. The police want to know who.
And they're thinking, who is she? I mean, his wife just died. Who's this gal he's hanging around with?
That woman was eventually identified as Brandita. Brandita was living the high life. He was taking her to Vegas, buying things. She had it made.
But before long, Brandy's glittering world will come crashing down.
They searched her apartment and found a bunch of jewelry. Guess who that jewelry used to belong to?
It's the winter of 1993 in LA. For 2 years, Brandita Taliano and her sugar daddy, Dennis Dolly, live it up. Thanks to an inheritance from Dennis's murdered wife, Joan.
2 years after a crime has passed is enough time for the perpetrator to become comfortable, to think that maybe they got away with it.
But their party is about to end. Brandita is arrested on a drugs charge.
Brandy gets arrested, and when she gets arrested, the cops think about that old case involving Joan's murder, and they think also about the advances in DNA.
By now, DNA analysis is common. The tissue found under Joan's nails matches Brandy's DNA. And there's something else tying her to the crime.
During the course of her detention there, they discovered all this jewelry in the bottom of her purse. And it just happened to be Joan Dolly's jewelry.
This isn't Brandy's first stint in prison. A few years earlier, when Brandy Taliano is locked up for theft, she has one loyal visitor, Dennis Dolly.
Hey, how you doing?
Brandita was in and out of custody.
How you think I'm doing? Have you got the stuff?
Dennis started visiting her in jail.
He bought her drugs when she needed drugs.
Dennis wants something in return.
If you got someone, you know, for the big job.
During one of those visits to the jail, the subject came up that he needed help. He needed someone to help him with a big job. And did Brandy know anybody?
His name's Gary. He'll do it for the money.
And Brandy came back with a couple of ideas, a couple of gang members from LA.
The big job is to kill Dennis's wife.
She sleeps on that side. I don't care what you do to her. You can rape her, beat her, whatever, so long as she's dead.
Dennis tells the two men he's employed to murder his wife of many, many years, the mother of his children, that they can go ahead and rape her if they want to. Just make sure she's dead when it's over. He hated her.
But one of the potential hitmen is arrested on an unrelated charge.
Which put an end to this plan because the two gang members needed each other to do the job, so it halted the plan.
With his divorce looming, Dennis is on a deadline.
It became urgent that he do something quickly.
When his low-class lover is released from jail, Dennis has the answer.
Dennis decides to take matters into his own hands, and he needs some help. He needs Brandy. So he tells Brandy to come over late at night, and he lets her inside.
He probably promised her she'd be the next Mrs. Dolly. And she wanted out of her situation.
Dennis Dolly was armed with a golf club. Mrs. Dolly was asleep in the master bedroom. I don't think she suspected anything until she was startled awake in her bedroom to see Dennis wielding a golf club, this strange woman.
To get the life she wants, Brandita must take Jones.
Brandy grabs her and holds her down.
And that's how Brandita's DNA ended up under the nails of Mrs. Dolly.
She's dead?
I think so.
They then scrambled through the house, tossed everything.
They just sort of set the stage in a very poor way that a robbery had gone wrong.
They've stolen Jones' life. Now they squander her inheritance.
Dennis spent his ill-gotten gains on a boat, a jacuzzi, a waterbed, and a gazebo. That's what Jones' life and their marriage was worth to him.
With money as a powerful motive and damning DNA evidence, Brandita Taliano and her lover Dennis are charged with the murder of Joan Dolly.
He was the most average guy in the world. No one could believe that inside of him was the ability to be this evil.
In 1997, Dennis Dolly is convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole. He dies in prison 6 years later.
I don't think Dennis loved Brandy. I don't think he loved Joan. I don't think he loved anything or anyone. Dennis was all about himself.
Brandita Taliano is also convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life. Brandy and Dennis had very different aspirations, but they'd both stop at nothing to get their way.
All Brandita wanted was heroin and someone to love her. All Dennis wanted was someone to have sex with and to help him kill his wife, Joan. And then they met.
A love triangle has 3 sides.
Both of these women knew they were sharing the same man.
My kids need me.
But when that triangle folds,
I gotta go.
Nadia went after the person that she thought had ruined her chance of happiness.
desperation takes over.
Hi, can I help you?
It was a very personal attack, which was driven by rage and jealousy.
Newark, New Jersey, early 2009. Sharon Mowens and Kenny Jones look the picture of happiness.
Kenneth Jones was involved in a long, approximately 8 to 8.5 year relationship with Sharon Mowens.
But the couple has recently split.
They had an argument, some sort of a fight, the result of which was that Kenneth Jones moved out.
Sharon wants a break.
Kids, we gotta go. Come on, let's go.
But Kenny is keen to reconcile.
He loved Sharon. He wanted to be back there with her.
In the meantime,
Hi, what can I get for you?
Kenny's yearning for company.
Coming up.
He finds it when 18-year-old Nadia Venable starts work.
Nadia Venable met Kenneth Jones through a mutual job in the food services industry.
Kenny is only too happy to show Nadia the ropes.
Nadia seemed like a relatively quiet, sort of under the radar, never caused any uproar.
The attraction is instant. And this work romance quickly develops into much more.
The relationship with Nadia Venable got fairly serious quickly. He moved in with her.
Kenny finds comfort in the arms of this younger woman.
I think he probably enjoyed the attention of having the two women interested in him.
And he's happy to pay his way.
I think he provided for her financially, at least to some extent. Nadia was very much in love with Kenneth Jones.
So in love, she doesn't mind sharing.
He had told Ms. Venable from the start that he was always going to be going back to Sharon Mowens, that even though they're separated, he didn't consider that separation to be final.
Nadia was the other woman.
Nadia thinks she knows how to win Kenny's heart.
She became pregnant.
I think we should call him Kenny.
You sure it's a boy, huh?
Far from bringing Nadia and Kenny closer, her pregnancy drives them apart.
What time?
I think the relationship between Kenneth Jones and Nadia Venable was also a lot of back and forth. I think that there was tension between them because of the presence of Sharon Mowens still being in their life.
I'll pick him up. I gotta pick my kids up after school.
Why can't she do it, Kenny?
She has to work. They're my kids, too.
Kenneth apparently did like the excitement of being in a love triangle. This one got a little too exciting.
I thought you couldn't live with her, Kenny.
My kids need me.
What about this kid? Kenny!
In April 2010,
I gotta go.
Nadia loses the tug of war when Kenny reconciles with his wife and decides to return home.
The news that he was going back to Sharon came as a complete shock to her.
I think that when Kenneth Jones went back to Sharon, she felt probably very devastated.
Nadia is not just heartbroken. She's also left flat broke.
The electricity bill was due. They were cutting it off. Their phone had been cut off for approximately a week.
He left her high and dry. 6 months pregnant, no money to pay the bills.
As Kenny and Sharon rekindle their relationship,
Oh, heck no.
Nadia's rage smolders.
Kenny, you need to pay these bills.
You need to stay out of our lives.
Nadia hated Sharon. Both of these women knew they were sharing the same man, and they had had a few run-ins.
Go!
Kenneth left Nadia in dire straits. Desperate pregnant women can be dangerous.
Nadia concocts a plan.
What are you making?
She wants to scare off her competition.
Nadia went after the person that she thought had ruined her chance of happiness.
She enlists her 15-year-old cousin to help.
They took Clorox bleach, they poured it into 2 empty spice containers. They decided to go to Sharon Mowens' house, basically to beat her up, was their intention.
Nadia's jealous, jilted, and has nothing to lose.
I think she believed that the only way that she could ever get him back was to take Sharon Mowens out of the picture altogether.
Newark, May 15th, 2010. It's the day before Mother's Day. 29-year-old Sharon Mowens has plenty of chores to do, while her partner, Kenny Jones, is at work.
It was a quiet afternoon at Sharon Mowens' house. They were playing music, she was cleaning, her 3- and 6-year-old boys were playing with their toys.
Oh, did you make that at school today?
Yes.
Oh, but you know you're not supposed to give this to me until tomorrow.
Sharon's not expecting any visitors today. But there's someone at the door. Kenny's ex-lover, 20-year-old Nadia Venable, and her teenage cousin.
Putting her cousin in front of her was a decoy. It was to make sure that they would be able to gain entry into that apartment.
Sharon's daughter doesn't recognize the caller. And that's exactly what Nadia Venable wants.
They asked, is Sweetie there? Sweetie being Sharon's nickname. As they were asking that, Sharon herself came to the door.
Can I help you?
Nadia and her cousin threw bleach in Sharon's face that immediately disabled their victim.
And then just started mercilessly punching and beating her until she fell to the floor. There was a struggle that led into the kitchen. Sharon grabbed a knife to defend herself, but it was taken from her and she was stabbed repeatedly.
It was a very personal attack, which was driven by rage and jealousy.
Sharon's only thoughts are for her children.
I imagine she wanted to protect her children, didn't want them to see what was happening, and at the same time, fight for her life.
For Nadia, it is mission accomplished.
It shows how desperate she must have been to carry this out in such a brutal way. She must have just known what she wanted to do that day, and nothing stopped her.
Let's go!
Nadia and her cousin flee the scene, leaving Sharon mortally wounded.
Sharon was stabbed 27 times. It was necessary for Nadia to obliterate her enemy.
Ms. Mowens managed to crawl out of her apartment. She collapsed right outside of her door, right in the foyer where her neighbors found her.
Sharon's daughter calls 911. She also tells the police she knew the attacker.
Sharon's 10-year-old was able to identify her and tell the police who did it.
The next day, the police issue an alert for Nadia. Never imagining the murderer will come to them.
Can I help you?
Yeah, my car's been stolen.
Okay, what was your name?
Nadia Venable?
Police ultimately caught Nadia Venable because her car was actually towed. And so she went to the police station and said, you know, my car's been stolen. And the police said, no, you're under arrest for the murder of Sharon Mowens.
Will you come with me, please?
On trial for murder, Nadia tries to lay the blame on her cousin, but the jury believes otherwise.
Ultimately, jurors believed that Nadia Venable, who had the motive, who was so angry, devised this plan, looped her cousin in with her, drove over with the purpose of beating this woman up, and then at some point, killed her.
Nadia's cousin pleads guilty to conspiracy to murder. Her sentence is sealed.
We can't really discuss what happened to her because she's a juvenile.
In September 2013, Nadia Venable is found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 55 years in prison, with no chance of parole until 2060.
Nadia got what she wanted, Sharon out of the picture. but Nadia will spend the rest of her life in prison.
Just 10 months after her conviction, Nadia dies behind bars of a seizure, leaving innocent victims behind.
I don't think any person with half a heart could A, kill someone, but B, do it with their kids just standing there. It was just the ultimate episode of jealousy and what it can do to a person.
Multiple lives were profoundly affected by this murder. 3 young children, 1 unborn child. A young mother is dead, and a man is without his family or his girlfriend over jealousy.
Love is a powerful force.
A passionate and intense relationship.
It can bring people together.
She would have done anything to ensure that they could live happily ever after together.
Get out! And tear them apart.
Get outside! She needed to eliminate him for her own happiness. "100 miles north of Sydney, Australia, in the quiet town of Maitland, 2007. Renee Burns prepares for a family barbecue.
Steve, can you please give me a hand?
Her partner, 30-year-old Stephen Quire, dotes on their kids, but he struggles to please Renee.
Stephen worked hard, brought home his paycheck, supported his family. He was described by others as a normal, hard-working guy.
Stephen has 1 child with Renee and is stepfather to another.
Stephen Quire had taken over the role of the father to the child of Renee Burns, and it's quite clear that that child worshipped the ground he walked on.
He loved her, and he raised her little girl as if she was his own.
Their guests today are Stephen's sister Amanda and her new partner, 23-year-old Tanya Lane.
Through that relationship is how she fostered relationships with both Stephen Quire and Renee Burns.
Over the next few months, Tanya becomes close to the couple. Renee cherishes this exciting new friendship. Because her own relationship is disintegrating.
I'm not a tea towel.
Oh, come on, my hands are dry.
Get off me.
What's your problem?
They argued a lot, they fought a lot. Neighbours said they heard them fighting a lot.
She's not the only one with problems.
Hey. Hey, I'm so sorry to hear about you and Amanda. It's for the best.
Tanya Lane's relationship with Amanda had ended by then. Tanya was spending a lot of time at the Rutherford home.
I've been thinking about you.
When Tanya and Amanda break up, Tanya turns to Renee for comfort.
Sorry,
But she wants more than a shoulder to cry on.
Do you want to go back to my place? Yeah.
Renee and Tanya became lovers.
They went to great lengths to conceal the relationship. They purchased mobile phones.
That one is yours. Don't let Steve see it, okay?
Duh.
For the specific use of communicating with each other.
Hello? Hi, sexy. Want to come over to my place?
Yes.
Renee Burns had commenced a relationship with Tanya Lane, a passionate and intense relationship.
I wish I could stay here forever.
You can.
Tanya is head over heels.
What about the girls?
But Renee won't leave her kids. For Tanya, a part-time lover is not enough.
Tanya Lane was besotted with Renee Burns and would have done anything to keep the relationship going.
On December 23rd, 2008, Tanya asks for a meeting with her lover's partner, Stephen. Intrigued to know what's going on, Stephen agrees to a late-night walk.
They walked away from houses. They walked away from where people might be able to see what was going on. All of a sudden, this four-wheel drive emerged.
A man got out and shot Steve in the head.
The gunman turns to Tanya. He doesn't shoot her. He abducts her.
She was only detained for a matter of minutes before this man wearing the balaclava released her.
There was no demand for ransom and she wasn't hurt.
Incredibly, Stephen survives the shooting. But the police can't trace the gunman.
No one was ever arrested or charged in relation to the shooting.
Hey, Dad, we're really hungry.
I'm gonna order pizza.
If Stephen expects sympathy from Renee, he doesn't get it. Instead, he's left to deal with the kids while their mom is missing in action.
Steve was very frustrated and angry.
Where have you been?
Met up with Tanya. Went for a drink.
A drink? It's been 4 hours.
We got talking. I actually had some fun for a change.
The relationship deteriorated.
Some fun? Why, you thinking of changing sides?
You're pathetic.
Stephen doesn't realize how close he's come to the truth. Tanya's concocting a way to have Renee all to herself.
Love triangles can be, and frequently are, dangerous.
January 2010, the country town of Maitland, Australia. Lovers Renee Burns and Tanya Lane are trying to keep their affair quiet, but they can't hide their passion.
Tanya Lane was there a lot of the time, and a lot of their neighbours and friends suspected that something was going on.
It's him. He's early. Get dressed.
Renee Burns' partner, Stephen Quire, ignores the gossip until he comes face to face with the truth.
Steve,
What the hell?
she doesn't love you. It's over. Steve, let her go.
Get out!
Ted, go. It's okay.
Stephen Quire banned her, said that he didn't want Tanya Lane ever coming back to the house again.
Oh, well, aren't you just the hero, you big man?
When Steve found out that Renee was involved intimately with Tanya, Steve and Renee began to fight not only verbally, but physically.
Stephen is now convinced of one thing. Tanya was behind the attempt on his life.
Stephen believed that Tanya Lane had lured him to that location.
Steve believed that Tanya had been the one that shot him, but he stayed around. He forbid Renee to see Tanya.
The two lovers can't bear to be parted.
You okay? Yeah. Kind of. What are we gonna do? Leave it to me.
In late February 2010, Tanya and Renee finally get their wish.
Renee Burns moved out of the house and moved in with Tanya Lane.
Can I get you water?
But their newfound bliss is shattered when police come knocking.
So when did you last see Stephen?
They bring sad news.
Stephen's dead.
Stephen Quire has been found dead.
His body was in a state of decomposition at the time it was found in the national park.
He had a gunshot wound to the chest and has been dead for weeks.
Our focus was, well, who is Stephen Quire and why would someone want him dead?
Why are you asking?
His former partner, Renee, seems unfazed. She and the kids haven't seen Stephen for a month.
I thought he'd left.
The least Renee could have done was report her husband missing to the police, but that didn't occur to her.
The police smell a rat.
They were very suspicious immediately that both women were involved.
There's no evidence linking either woman to the killing. Until detectives discover Tanya Lane has recently been shopping for a gun. An ex-con tells cops he supplied her with a unique weapon.
He said, I was able to obtain a gun for her and sold it to her for $700.
It was a World War II flare gun that had been modified to fire shotgun ammunition.
Tanya Lane is charged with murder. The police believe Renee lied to protect her lover, and she's charged as an accessory to murder.
Both Tanya Lane and Renee Burns colluded between each other to invent false stories as to the potential whereabouts of Stephen.
With both women proclaiming their innocence, prosecutors must piece together Tanya's murder plot.
She planned this killing. She traveled to the home of Renee Burns and Stephen Quire late in the evening. She went into the house.
Tanya Lane was desperately in love with Renee Burns and would have done anything to ensure that they could live happily ever after together.
After the murder, Tanya dumps Steve's body and the gun. In court, Tanya insists she's innocent. But in prison, it's a different story.
Tanya Lane had made a telephone call from jail where she admitted that she was the shooter.
Her own words seal Tanya's fate. In August 2013, she changes her plea to guilty and is sentenced to 17 years behind bars. Renee Burns pleads guilty to accessory to murder after the fact. She receives 4 years in prison.
Renee Burns definitely knew about the killing, but the evidence is fairly sparse as to where she was and what she knew and when.
Tanya's dream of being with Renee comes true when they are briefly incarcerated together.
So it certainly appeared that the relationship continued whilst they were on remand and in jail together.
It's a final disrespect to the memory of Stephen Quire, a loving father who stood in the way of a wicked obsession.
Steve was an obstacle. Tanya needed to eliminate him for her own happiness. And that's what she did.
These deadly women would do anything to be number one. Brandita Taliano thought murder would bring romance and riches. Nadia Venable tried to reclaim her lover by eliminating her rival. And Tanya Lane destroyed the one obstacle in her path to happiness. All three executed cold, cruel acts, so they would no longer be second best. The only thing stronger than a mother's love is a child's greed.
That is disgusting.
A callous caregiver chooses a vulnerable victim.
They basically used Lynn as a cash machine.
A high school senior plots against her own flesh and blood.
She missed out on the commandments, thou shalt honor thy parents, and thou shalt not kill.
And a runaway returns with murder on her mind.
Any demon who tried to take possession of Tasha would see what's in her heart and run away screaming.
When these deadly women gaze into their mother's eyes, all they see is dollars. They want Mom's money. Peoria, Arizona, 1990. It's moving-in day. A fresh start for multiple sclerosis sufferer Lynn Carlson, her son, 20-year-old David, and his new wife.
Lynn was so thoughtful and so kind.
Oh, no. Over here.
She bought a house free and clear, and she said, come stay with me, you can help take care of me, and you'll also have a place to live.
This is gonna be good for us, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, she had serious health issues that required care.
David's wife, Doris, is 10 years his senior and the perfect person to help his ailing mom. She is a qualified caregiver.
She worked as a nursing assistant from time to time.
But now that she's living in Lynn's house, Doris doesn't see the need to work.
Looks like your checks are here.
All she does is sponge off the monthly checks from her mother-in-law's trust account.
Doris was a freeloader. She was somebody looking for the easy way out. You know, they basically used Lynn as a cash machine.
David and Doris do nothing but spend his mother's money.
Are you two thinking about getting a job? I could use some help.
Mom, I've looked, okay? There's nothing.
David would do whatever Doris wanted him to do. He certainly didn't lift a finger to help his mother.
David, I'm sure if you tried.
Hey! Stop picking on David.
Over the next 4 years, they convince Lynn to take out not one, but 2 mortgages against the house that total $94,000.
So all of a sudden, the house that used to be free and clear they were making payments on it. They took out that money and blew it on just junk stuff.
It was all about the money because the money afforded Doris to have the life she wanted, which was to do nothing.
Doris and David are supposed to care for Lynn, but they don't.
David and Dory would not do her laundry, and during the night she may have an accident and soil her sheets.
David?
Nobody would come and help her.
That is disgusting.
David, please.
They didn't love her. They didn't care for her. There's nobody there for her at that point.
It must have been absolutely heartbreaking for Lynn to realize that her own son was letting her suffer.
2 years later, both mortgages are spent. So Doris finds another way to raise cash: young lodgers.
They would collect the money, never tell Lynn where that money went. They would just spend it on themselves.
Lynn's house and her lifestyle are spiraling out of control.
Oh, look at that.
Cheated.
As a caregiver, Doris must have known that the best environment for Lynn would be one that was peaceful and quiet. But that didn't mean anything to Doris. Doris wanted more money.
Lynn finally has enough. She decides to move out into an assisted care facility. And she takes her income with her.
The money stopped coming. The annuity checks went to the convalescence center and not to the house.
David and Doris are now forced to fend for themselves.
$1,600 per month, so that was gone. That was their income.
Lynn settles into her new home,
Oh, you spoil me.
receiving the attention she's lacked for so long.
She grew to really like the care facility. She got to know some of the other residents, and she really started enjoying herself.
We have visitors.
The same can't be said for David and Doris. They're drowning in debt.
They were about to lose the house. The utilities hadn't been paid. Everything was going to be shut off.
Listen, Mom, we kind of need some help.
They were definitely in dire straits.
On a rare visit to Lynn, Doris demands even more money.
We need $6 grand. Now.
Well,
She says, I'm going to talk to the financial advisor.
I'll talk to my advisor, and I'll let you know.
After years of being bilked for her money,
You'll get back to us.
Lynn's trying to get tough.
You should be looking after your son, you mean old cow.
Is everything okay in here?
But Doris isn't the kind of girl to take no for an answer.
When someone is generous to a psychopath, the only thing they can expect is trouble.
Peoria, Arizona, 1996. Doris Carlson is consumed by a deep yearning for her mother-in-law's money.
She just wanted to obtain the riches without having to work for anything.
If her mother-in-law dies, Doris and her husband, David, can claim their inheritance. But it might take years for Lynn to die of natural causes.
That's when she really decided that she was going to kill Lynn.
Doris decides to outsource the job. She turns to one of her lodgers, 20-year-old Dan McCreakin.
You want to make some money?
Doris says to Dan, how about if I give you $20,000 to go kill Lynn?
Oh, you're joking, right?
No.
And Dan thinks about it for a while and says, okay.
17-year-old roommate, Scott Smith, volunteers too.
They agreed that they would split the money.
In the early hours of October 25th, 1996, Doris sets her get-rich-quick scheme in motion.
Okay. She planned every aspect. She bought the knives. She bought the gloves. She drove them to the assisted living complex. Everything.
They use a key that Dory had given them to get in. The plan is to make it look like a burglary.
I can just see her sitting in that car, just waiting for the money to roll in, waiting for Lynn to get killed.
But inside, there are second thoughts about doing Doris's dirty work.
Dan goes in there. He's like, I don't want to do this.
I don't think I can do this. Just hurry up and do it!
And then Scott says, come on, let's get this done. So Dan starts stabbing Lynn in the chest.
Dan stabs Lynn 10 times before fleeing in a panic.
Just drop it, man, drop it!
They run out, they don't take the TV, they give up on this thing about it being a burglary. Dory says,
Well?
is it done? And
Yeah, it's done.
one of the boys says, yeah, we took care of it.
But they haven't. Lynn is still alive.
Later on that morning, one of the employees at the care home went by to check on her. They found Lynn in there, conscious.
This is sort of a case of dumb, dumber, and dumbest. I mean, that's really what it is. Doris wasn't the brightest bulb in the chandelier, and these two guys helping her weren't either.
The next morning, as police investigate the crime, there's an unexpected visitor, Lynn's son, David.
And everybody kind of looked around and thought, well, why are you here now? You know, you never come to visit her.
Detective Bill Lang still remembers David's reaction to hearing of the attack on his mother.
He didn't become upset or emotional in any way. All he said was, how is she and can she talk?
Can she talk?
No less than 4 times
Can she talk?
did he ask me, can she talk?
Just come this way, sir.
Everyone is waiting for Lynn to speak, but she's too ill.
At that point, we were kind of at a stalemate. We had a lot of suspicions, but we had absolutely nothing to work on.
Doris thinks her secret is safe. Until 3 days later.
When so many people are involved in such a horrible crime, eventually, someone's going to talk.
Get a call from an individual who says he's a friend of basically everybody at the house. During one of his visits, they admitted to the attack.
The informant agrees to take part in a sting.
What have you been doing? What happened?
In this particular case, what we did is we bugged his car.
It's great. Just went in and got out. Left no fingerprints. The cops have gotten nothing.
The 4 are arrested. As prosecutors develop their case, Lynn loses her battle for life.
The last 6 months of Lynn's life were horrible. Her wounds never healed. It was a gradual spiraling down to death.
Charges are amended from attempted murder to murder. Daniel McCreakin is found guilty of first-degree murder, receiving a life sentence. 17-year-old Scott Smith gets 10 years in prison for second-degree murder.
If they hadn't come across Doris, they probably would have gone on to maybe simple, not maybe great, but certainly not murderous lives.
David Carlson is convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and receives life.
Who lets their wife kill their mother? David.
In July 1999, Doris Carlson is found guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and first-degree burglary. She is sentenced to death, later reduced to life in prison.
It's all money. Basically, that's all it was, is it was just for money.
Kind and generous to a fault, Lynn Carlson's only sin was to live too long.
Who kills a defenseless, wheelchair-bound woman? Who's supporting you? Doris Carlson does. That's who.
Some girls
She could have had her choice of a lot of guys.
seem too good to be true,
Pretty, smart.
especially when you're a dropout.
A guy who's wasting his life playing video games.
But love works in strange ways.
It really wasn't a fair fight. He never saw her coming.
Burbank, California, 1995. High school senior Amber Bray has the world at her feet.
Amber Bray was a bright, 18-year-old young woman who was pretty, smart.
Okay, settle down, class. Back in your seats.
She was very devoted churchgoer, and she had done very well at school.
Nice work, Amber. Thanks.
This is a young teenager who could have a very good life for herself.
Then, Amber crosses paths with 21-year-old Jeffrey Ayers.
Dude, you suck at this game.
He's just kind of a doofus. A guy who's wasting his life playing video games when he could be going to school, when he could be making something of himself.
So you go to school around here?
Yeah.
Yeah?
No one understands why ambitious Amber wants to date loser Jeffrey.
Oh, no, it's not bad.
But the pair form an unlikely bond.
Wait, how old are you?
How old do you think I am?
18 or 19?
Jeffrey never wanted a long-term girlfriend before he met her, but he fell, and he fell hard.
Dixie Hollier's office.
Amber's mom, record company executive Dixie Hollier, starts getting calls.
Hello, Dixie speaking.
Her straight-A daughter is skipping class.
So all week.
The only symptom we had that something was wrong was that Amber began to miss school.
Thank you, I understand, thank you.
She missed it to the point that she got into trouble for truancy.
Everything okay?
No, not really.
then. Thanks.
Thank you.
Dixie is a divorcee raising 3 kids. She worries her eldest daughter is throwing away her future.
Amber had a stormy relationship with her mother. Typical daughter, mother, teenage hormones battling each other.
I said, excuse me. Where have you been?
At school.
You have not been at school because the school phoned me and you haven't been there for days.
Amber's 15-year-old sister, Amy, is often caught in the crossfire.
Stop yelling!
I do care about. Now cut it out!
A lot of mothers and daughters start having problems when the daughter's 13, 14, 15, and then generally they grow back together.
I don't care, or I should care.
That didn't happen in this case. Amber hated her mother.
And Amber makes sure her boyfriend hates her mom, too.
What's the matter?
She would portray herself as this poor wretch who was abused by her mother.
I don't think I can do this anymore.
There's no evidence of abuse, but Jeffrey buys her story.
You're a young man, and all at once you have this beautiful young woman showing this great interest in you. Pretty soon, you get suckered into the story about how mean mommy is to her.
Then Amber tells him she can't take it anymore.
If you don't do something about my mom, I think I'm gonna kill myself.
Hey,
Well, Jeffrey couldn't let that happen.
I'll do anything for you, okay? Anything that's gonna make you happy, I'll do it for you, okay?
You promise?
I promise.
It was just a way, along with her good looks and her sob story, to basically bait the hook more for Jeff Ayers.
The reason for Amber's inexplicable bond with a high school dropout is about to become clear.
Almost everybody who plans a murder writes it down. In the process of creation, everything starts as a thought. And then it becomes word, and then it becomes deed.
When she met Jeffrey, she saw someone she could control and manipulate to get exactly what she wanted him to do.
In Burbank, California, 1996. A teenage tryst is getting serious, fast.
So, I made a list.
Jeffrey and Amber had only known each other a few months, but they were already talking about getting married.
So I've invited 100 people.
Amber Bray and Jeffrey Ayers draw up a guest list. But 2 names are conspicuously absent.
It turns out Amber's mother and younger sister, Amy, were not on the invitation list.
What does that tell you?
Amber convinces Jeff that in order for their new lives to begin, other lives must end.
I think Amber did a great job of basically manipulating Mr. Ayers.
We're gonna have like a big house, right?
Romance him, seduce
And a
him,
car.
and say, we can live happily ever after. You just have to do one thing.
In handwritten notes to her lover, Amber reveals just what that task is.
There was a series of communications about killing the mother, thereafter buying a house with the mother's money. They thought with Dixie's money, retirement savings, they'd live happily ever after.
All of these notes passing between them for months means that they had been giving a lot of thought to this murder. They programmed everything. What they hadn't counted on was that the plans would go terribly wrong.
Before dawn on January 16th, 1996, Amber lets Jeffrey into her mom's Burbank home.
I think he was probably very nervous.
Jeffrey had emotions about it. Amber didn't.
Jeffrey's only experience at killing is in video games.
He had the gun. I believe his plan was to shoot the mother twice in the head. He was not able to inflict a fatal injury.
Unlike the video games, where a single gunshot wound causes somebody to collapse and die, a bullet has to actually penetrate the skull and go into the deep brain structures in order to cause immediate unconsciousness. The bullet may have simply grazed her head.
Dixie didn't go down easily. She crawled out of her bedroom.
When the gunshots didn't kill her off, Mr. Ayers then ran into the kitchen and he grabbed a bunch of butcher knives, stabbed her so severely, as I recall, the handles on one or more of the knives actually broke off.
The noise disturbs Amber's 15-year-old sister.
She grabs the phone and starts to call 911.
At that point, Amber pulled the telephone cord out from the wall and blocked Amy from calling 911.
What Amy doesn't realize is that when Mom's dead, she's next.
Amber Bray had solicited Jeff Ayers to kill her mother and also to kill her younger sister, Amy Bray. She was going to be killed as part of the deal.
But that's not Amy's fate.
Burbank police received a call from a neighbor who had heard some shots fired, and the patrol officers got there very, very quickly.
Her sister Amy was lucky the police arrived when they did.
Mr. Ayers was caught literally red-handed with Dixie's blood on his hands.
On the ground! It's too late for hard-working single mom of 3, Dixie Hollier.
24 stab wounds, plus 2 gunshot wounds to the head, tells me this is overkill. Tells me that there was rage and anger present.
Amber's reaction to her mother's death is suspiciously cold.
She feigned some crocodile tears, but I think it became obvious to the police very quickly that any feelings of sorrow were just acting on her part.
When the police uncover Amber's incriminating notes, she and Jeffrey Ayers are arrested. Both are found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder for financial gain. They are sentenced to life without parole.
It was Amber's emotional immaturity that caused this murder. She had no thought for anyone except herself.
Apparently, Amber was a deeply religious person, but she missed out on the 2 commandments: thou shalt honor thy parents, and thou shalt not kill.
There was no proof that Dixie Lee Hollier was anything other than a loving mom.
The lady was a nice, hardworking lady. We never found any evidence whatsoever of any abuse by her towards Amber other than, you know, telling her to do chores and, you know, do her homework and that kind of thing.
Do you have an emergency there?
She said there's been a horrible accident.
What does it take for a mother to abandon her child?
She's like, well, if I didn't know any better, I think they're trying to kill me.
One family discovers the awful truth.
Starts with G and ends with R-E-E-D.
It just sucks the breath out of you.
In California's Central Valley, 1988, 15-year-old Tasha Stewart is becoming a troubled teen.
The things that she got in trouble for as a young child was always for lying. You know, if she broke a glass, it was somebody else's fault. Something else happened. She didn't do it.
Mom Judy is loved by everyone.
What? Dinner's nearly ready.
She was a wonderful lady.
Except Tasha.
Tasha basically referred to her mom by a bunch of rotating expletives.
I told you, I'm going out. And just what part of no, you're not going out, don't you understand? You're not my mom. You can't tell me what to do.
Tasha begins sneaking out at night.
It was nonstop.
Come out, talk to us, honey.
I literally cannot count the number of times that we had to report her as a runaway.
I don't know what to do.
During this whole process, she told us that we're not her real parents. I said, you're right, we're not.
Honey!
15 years earlier, in 1973,
God, she's beautiful.
Tasha is born to Judy's twin sister, Jody. But Jody's not cut out to be a mom.
Jody had a very checkered past. She was actually a prostitute. She had some psychological issues.
You gotta take her.
So it was difficult for her.
There's no room in my world for a baby. You know that.
So Tasha's mom gives up her child to Judy and her then husband, Rolf.
I was absolutely elated. Yeah, it was a great day for me.
Not many kids who are born to a prostitute who can't care for them get that lucky in life. Tasha did.
In her late teens, Tasha moves out to make her own way in the world.
I don't think anything could have made Tasha happy. A happy, warm, loving family for Tasha didn't mean a thing.
You're the best.
But the adopted daughter doesn't cut ties entirely.
She would always come back because she needed something. She needed a place to stay. She needed money. She needed some form of support.
By 2011, in Pasco, Washington, Tasha's back on Judy's doorstep again, broke and in debt.
I'm on her home.
This time with husband Todd in tow and her 7-year-old daughter.
First door on the right.
I have missed you so much. Hello.
Judy told them that if they wanted to, they could move in with her to kind of get back on their feet.
I swear you've grown.
Best of all, Judy gets to see more of her granddaughter.
Would you like some milk and cookies?
She was the center of Judy's life. She knew how much Judy loved her.
Okay, let's go get them.
But Tasha isn't so easy to get along with. Soon, there's tension.
Judy had allowed them to use a debit card to get money out of the bank or to buy things at the store.
Would you take
$300 from my account?
Well, she had found that there was some money missing that shouldn't have been missing.
You have stolen.
So many people that knew Judy saw her as a loving, giving mother. But Tasha apparently didn't see any of that or didn't care.
What are you gonna do about it, woman?
What she cared about was Mom's money.
But Judy lets Tasha stay for the sake of her granddaughter.
She thought if she could just have her close, there would be some possible hope that she would be able to be raised in a normal fashion.
Okay, Nick, come on.
Judy doesn't realize that by trying to keep her granddaughter safe, she's putting herself in harm's way.
Her mother would have given her anything because of that little girl.
And that was a fatal mistake.
– 2011, Pasco, Washington. While Tasha Stewart is moving boxes into the garage of her adoptive mom, Judy, there's a terrible accident.
Judy.
Judy was out in the garage, and this large box of books fell on her and almost broke her neck.
Judy is okay, but the incident raises questions.
That it would fall off at that precise moment that she just happened to be moving on the floor in the garage, that seemed a little bit too much to be just a coincidence.
Judy tells a neighbor she thinks it was no accident.
I don't know how that box fell.
She's like, well, if I didn't know any better, I think she's trying to kill me.
And Judy has a hunch about why Tasha might want her dead. Money.
In Judy's first will, she left everything to Tasha.
To protect herself, Judy changes her will, leaving Tasha only $10,000. She secures it in a safe in the bedroom.
Tasha needed to get in that safe and remove that will.
To get inside the safe, Tasha first needs the access code.
She's making a video of trying to capture the combination to that safe in the closet.
It works. Along with the will, Tasha finds something else belonging to her mother.
It was a .357 pistol revolver.
On March 3rd, 2011, Tasha tells her daughter to leave the house.
Sweetie, I need you to go into the garage and not come out until I come and get you, okay? Okay.
One of the neighbors that lives directly across the street, he hears 2 gunshots, and he said there's about a 4-second delay, and then the 3rd shot.
Ma'am, open up.
Police race to the scene.
She came at me with an axe.
Tasha comes to the door, and she says, I had to shoot her. She was coming at me with an axe.
Inside, it's gruesome. Judy lays dead with 3 bullet wounds and her head cleaved by an axe.
She said that that injury had happened while they were struggling with the axe.
She admitted that she shot her mother, but she claimed that it was in self-defense.
Cops quickly exposed the self-defense story for what it is, a lie.
Our medical examiner evaluated the injury, and he evaluated the flow of the blood from the head. It showed that she was not standing up. She was probably already deceased. So the question really becomes is what was the need for any kind of self-defense at that point in time?
Piece by piece, the police expose what really happened the day Judy died. They surmise it began with Tasha threatening her mom.
Judy Hebert believed that she was in danger. She started to initiate a phone call.
But Judy doesn't get a chance to report her problem.
911 emergency.
The first shot, they believe, went through her hand and entered the side of her chest, ricocheted off of her rib cage and her sternum, and went directly through her aorta.
It's a fatal wound. Tasha then stages the crime as self-defense.
She took this cheap axe that Todd had and hit Judy across the back of the head with it.
Tasha is arrested. First, she is tried for attempted murder for the incident involving the box of books.
The jury made a fairly quick decision, and they realized, hey, this was with premeditation. And they found her guilty of the attempted act in the garage.
Then in July 2013, Tasha Stewart is found guilty of first-degree murder. She receives 45 years.
Tasha was really not bright enough to pull off this crime. She didn't know that most wills, there's a copy somewhere in a lawyer's office.
Judy had always put her daughter first. But her love was never reciprocated.
No good deed goes unpunished. And ultimately, Judy paid for her kind heart.
Oftentimes we see the killer trying to hire someone else to do the dirty work. Tasha was up close and personal while murdering her mother.
If there is such a thing as demonic possession, any demon who tried to take possession of Tasha would see what's in her heart and run away screaming.
These deadly women repaid motherly kindness with blood. Doris Carlson brutally betrayed the woman she was supposed to care for. Amber Bray exploited her loser lover for evil means. And teen runaway Tasha Stewart came back one last time to kill. They were all consumed by a desire for mom's money. When they are betrayed, some women don't just get mad.
I never made any promises.
You're a liar.
They get even.
Come on, or you won't get the 50 grand.
A deluded mom takes a custody battle to the extreme.
She thought if he was out of the picture, she would be able to raise the children.
A scorned lover cuts out the competition.
Dad.
As time went by, Geraldine became more and more angry.
And a femme fatale is desperate to feed her desires.
Nobody else mattered other than her and what she wanted.
These deadly women won't rest until they settle their scores, as they wreak lovers' revenge. When a woman's maternal instinct is distorted,
He was hurting the children in her mind.
I want you out of my house.
Why?
Because you're a witch.
She's paranoid and delusional.
That's for you, sweetie.
she will do anything to protect her flesh and blood.
I warned you.
It's just horrific.
(1995), Raleigh, North Carolina. A hub of number crunching becomes a place of romance.
They met when they both worked at the Department of Revenue.
36-year-old divorcee Camilla Boyd Norton is taking her first tentative steps towards new love with shy co-worker 32-year-old Terry Brown.
Terry seemed to be a very calm, professional, well-adjusted young man.
They got along well. They had a lot in common.
Camilla, ready for a refill?
Yeah, okay. Sure.
Camilla's looking for happiness after a troubled past.
She had been diagnosed with a number of psychiatric disorders.
I want you out of my house.
Why?
Because you're a witch.
Mom.
She's having an affair with President Bush. Get out!
She's paranoid and delusional.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Let me know if it's working. I know what you're doing.
For years, Camilla is plagued by paranoid visions.
Camilla truly believed these things. She thought they were genuinely true. She was very delusional.
That's a great drop.
By 1996, Camilla finally has her fragile mind under control.
It's good wine,
Her new beau, Terry, knows about her rocky past, but to him, it's ancient history.
That was delicious. You're a really good cook.
huh? How about you, let me cook for you the rest of your life?
He wants to take care of Camilla for the rest of their lives.
You marry me?
They wanted to start a family, and it ended up that they had 2 children.
Oh, God, no, I can't believe it.
She was happy. He thought they were happy.
Hey, guys. Who's winning?
For the next 5 years, Camilla and Terry live the American dream.
How are you?
Busy.
Okay, well, I'll go get dinner going then.
Okay, thanks, honey.
Then, trouble strikes.
Camilla lost her job at the Department of Revenue.
Camilla not only loses her job, she loses her confidence, and her old demons return.
She would start having paranoid thoughts and delusions.
You were with her yesterday, weren't you?
With who?
Don't you play dumb with me. You know who I'm talking about.
Camilla accused Terry of having an extramarital affair, which he denied.
Camilla, the millionth time, I'm not having an affair, okay?
Terry always tried to do the best by Camilla. He knew she had mental health issues, but he tried to stick by her.
I can tell when you're lying.
I'm not lying.
Look at me. I can tell when you're lying to me.
I'm not lying.
You are lying.
I'm not lying.
What are you gonna do with the knife then, huh?
Crazy.
For Terry, Camilla's wild delusions are too much to bear.
He just could not tolerate it anymore, so he moved out, and they were divorced in 2001.
Terry fights for custody of the kids and loses.
When the couple separated, initially Camilla had the custody of the children.
But Camilla's not behaving like a fit parent.
I am trying to concentrate.
Her fragile mind is splintering. She starts to neglect her duties as a mom.
She was living in squalor and not caring for her kids.
In July 2002, a visit to the doctor brings things to a head.
Does that hurt?
That pediatrician noted that the children were not thriving, that they were malnourished, and they were not properly clothed.
That's all for today. Thank you. Oh, wait a minute. These are for you and your sister.
The doctor reported these observations. The Department of Social Services conducted an investigation and ended up putting the children in foster care.
I want to report a case of child neglect.
That sparks another custody battle. A battle Camilla's determined to win at any cost.
That's when Camilla made an accusation that he had abused their children. She said that it was sexual abuse.
But her plan backfires when authorities learn it's just another of Camilla's delusions.
He was a great father, devoted to his children.
All those accusations were unfounded.
In 2003, Terry wins sole custody.
There are no grounds for appeal, Camilla.
But he's a child molester.
Terry has sole custody.
No!
They decided that the only person who could appropriately care for these children was Terry.
For Camilla, the fight is far from over. In her damaged mind, the children are in danger.
I'm getting another lawyer.
And she will do anything to protect them.
Camilla was desperate, still under this delusion that Terry was still abusing the children.
And Camilla couldn't take it.
In 2003, Raleigh, North Carolina, a delusional Camilla Brown is spying on her ex-husband, Terry. After losing custody of her kids, 39-year-old Camilla has been ordered to stay well away from her family.
The judge ordered her to stay 2,000 feet away from the children and her husband and not to contact them in any way.
She does the exact opposite, moving into the house behind Terry's.
Camilla was doing everything exactly wrong to keep from getting the custody of the children, but she thought she was doing everything right.
In her fractured mind, she's convinced her husband is abusing their children.
People suffering from delusions, such as Camilla was, don't pay attention to protective orders or the law. They believe what they believe, and it's the most important thing in their life.
A desperate Camilla pleads for even a moment
Terry, they're my life.
with her kids.
I have nothing without them.
There's a court order, Camilla.
Terry, please. Please let me see my children.
Don't cry.
And kind-hearted Terry finally cracks.
Because Terry had a soft spot in his heart, he allowed Camilla to visit the children.
But Terry wants to ensure his kids are safe.
Terry offered Pullen Park as a public place where they could meet, and it was decided that pizza would be provided for the children during the visitation.
Who wants pizza? Me!
March 24th, 2006. Camilla gets her wish.
Baby, how are you? Oh, it's so good to see you. Okay, guys, here you go. That's for you. That's for you, sweetie, now.
The family reunion seems to be going smoothly. Until...
I warned you.
No!
Camilla pulled out a gun and shot him.
She intended to kill him, I believe, because he was hurting the children in her mind.
If you can imagine the horror of a 6- and a 7-year-old child sitting there eating pizza, and their mother has just shot their father in the chest.
She thought if he was out of the picture, she would be able to raise the children. This shows how crazy she really was.
Terry makes his own 911 call.
My wife just shot me.
And reveals the identity of his attacker. Camilla is arrested at the scene. 5 hours later, Terry loses his fight for life.
Unfortunately, his injury was too severe for them to be able to save his life.
Camilla Brown is charged with murder.
Initially, Camilla refused to be questioned and refused to respond and would not cooperate with her lawyers. She would have nothing to say. That's when the mental health evaluations began to determine whether she would be competent to proceed to trial.
After the murder, Camilla had to have psychiatric treatment before she could cooperate with her attorneys and go to trial.
Camilla's lawyers plan a plea of insanity. But in 2009, her own pen poisons her plea. She writes a letter to the judge.
She made her most concise statement ever.
In the letter, she pretty much says, I knew what I was doing. It was wrong. I had a purpose for which I was doing it. I thought I was going to teach him a lesson.
Camilla admits she planned to shoot Terry, but only to wound him.
To shoot someone and they die, but you did not intend to kill them, that's squarely second-degree murder.
Camilla can no longer hide behind her demons.
The story of Camilla Brown is very sad. Mental illness destroyed her marriage, and then she destroyed her husband.
In February 2013, Camilla Brown pleads guilty to second-degree murder. She is sentenced to a minimum of 17 years in prison.
Despite the fact that Camilla had a long-standing history of mental illness, she still had enough lucid moments to set up a meeting and to pull the trigger and kill Terry. That's why she's in prison instead of a mental facility.
If she ever does become cured of her mental illness and can look at everything realistically, she's going to realize with horror what she has done.
I can't do this. It's not going anywhere.
A promise made.
That he would leave his wife.
I'm sick and tired of this back and forth.
A promise broken.
Louis wanted the best of both worlds.
Can sow the seeds of vengeance.
Know who I am?
She had a malignant heart, and there's no pill for that.
1985, in Chicago, Illinois. Factory workers Geraldine Smith and Louia McDonald can't keep their hands off each other.
Louia McDonald was employed at the bottling plant along with Geraldine Smith, and that's how they became involved in a relationship.
Theirs is a perfect romance, except for one thing.
I can't do this anymore. You're married.
You know how I feel about you, baby.
Louia McDonald was married and had a family.
Louia promises he'll make that obstacle disappear.
Louia McDonald had intimated to her that he wanted to leave his wife and be with her.
Geraldine was hearing what so many women have heard before. My wife doesn't understand me. I'm unhappy.
But Louia wants his cake and to eat it too. The dedicated family man always returns to his nest.
Hey, how my girls doing?
Hey, Dad.
Louia and Valerie McDonald had been married for approximately 16 to 17 years.
It was a problem at the factory.
Really? Another one?
For 2 years, Louia leads a double life, deceiving his 35-year-old wife, Valerie, and their daughters.
Valerie McDonald appeared to have a perfect life. She had 2 children. She went to church twice a week. Everything was good.
Everyone said they did have a happy marriage, a happy family life.
But Geraldine Smith doesn't like to share. She knows exactly how to turn her part-time lover into a full-time husband.
To Louia.
It wasn't too long before Geraldine became pregnant, and that changed everything.
Oh, can I hear wedding bells?
She reveals her plan to close friend Marva Golden.
But he's gonna leave his wife. He loves me.
This pregnancy will finally draw Louia away from his wife. But her boyfriend has other ideas.
Louis wanted the best of both worlds. He wanted his girlfriend and he wanted his wife.
Let's say prayer. Thank you, God, for this food made.
Louia's wife, Valerie, soon learns about the affair. But she's willing to give their marriage another chance.
Valerie was a forgiving Christian woman, and she would forgive Louia and stay with him.
I need to go.
Where are you going?
Geraldine's plan is falling apart, and so is her relationship with Louia.
She kept insisting that Louia McDonald keep his promise to her that he would leave his wife.
Promise? I never made any promises.
Promise you would leave her.
I never made any promises.
Even a baby on the way can't lure her lover from his family.
Geraldine didn't take that news too well. She was about to have a child to take care of.
Louis wished to stay with his wife and his 2 daughters, as well as maintain a relationship with Geraldine Smith on the side.
That kind of lifestyle is fraught with danger.
But Geraldine won't give up without a fight.
As time went by, Geraldine became more and more angry.
Know who I am?
I can guess.
I'm having his child. He's my man now. He don't want you no more.
You're crazy.
Who you calling crazy?
Geraldine Smith slapped Valerie McDonald, demanding that her husband leave her.
The police were called. And while the police were there, they searched the car, found a .25 caliber automatic.
The gun wasn't used in the assault. So Geraldine is only charged with a minor offense.
That should have been a very clear warning that Valerie's life was in danger.
October 1986, Chicago, Illinois. 38-year-old Geraldine Smith should be celebrating her new bundle of joy.
She gave birth to a baby boy, which she named Louia McDonald Jr.
I think she wanted the world to know whose child this was. And she didn't care who knew.
I want to speak to Louia.
But the new mom is obsessed by what she doesn't have. Her married lover, Louia McDonald.
Geraldine had wanted him to leave his wife, but he had decided not to.
Once the child was born, Louia McDonald stopped coming by so often.
Abandoned with a new baby, Geraldine's love turns to hate.
Dad!
He broke his word. But Geraldine wasn't upset with him.
I want my dad!
She focused all her jealousy, anger, and rage on an innocent party. She actually told a friend that she hoped Valerie would die.
Dad!
That Valerie had to die.
Geraldine turns to her close friend, Marva Golden.
Geraldine asked Marva to find someone to kill Valerie.
In her mind, this would solve her problems, and Louia McDonald would be hers.
Marva knows the kind of people who can make Valerie pay.
Eddie Williams had been recently released from the Illinois Department of Corrections. He did have an extensive criminal background.
So you want to make some money? Or you gotta just kill a housewife?
29-year-old Eddie Williams is more than happy to help, and he comes cheap.
How you doing?
Geraldine Smith had said she'd pay $500 for the shooting.
That's what Valerie's life was worth to them. $500.
On the night of June 23rd, 1987, Geraldine sets up her alibi, spending the evening with family. Then sends her helpers out to do the dirty work.
This was not a crime of passion. This was a cold-blooded, premeditated, well-thought-out murder. Geraldine had plenty of time, plenty of chances to say, you know, I don't think I want to do this. But she didn't.
Louia McDonald picks up his wife and daughters after church.
Hey, how was it?
It was so much fun.
Yeah, we learned a new song.
The pastor asked about you.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. You tell me I'll be there next week?
Yeah, right.
Praise God.
He's a savior.
Nearby, the hired assassins lie in wait.
Marva Golden waited in the car with the engine running, while Eddie Williams stood on the corner, waiting for the McDonald family to return home.
And that's where Louia McDonald's two worlds collide.
That's when Eddie went right up to Valerie and put a bullet in her head.
The two young daughters were highly traumatized.
They had just seen their mother shot.
Louia chases the gunman. When he sees the getaway car, he realizes who's behind this shocking attack. Louia gives up his lover to the cops.
Did you recognize the vehicle, sir? Yeah. I think it was Geraldine Smith's car.
5 days later, 37-year-old mother of two, Valerie McDonald, dies in the hospital.
It was a gunshot wound to the head. She went down immediately. I don't believe she ever actually regained consciousness.
Did you take care of it? Yeah, stop pain.
Geraldine thinks she has won.
This was the whole master plan of Geraldine, to seize the husband that she couldn't have from Valerie. And the easiest way out was to eliminate Valerie McDonald, which she did.
What Geraldine doesn't know is the cops are already on her trail.
This was such a poorly planned murder. The way it went down led police directly to Geraldine as a suspect.
Their prime suspect says she was at home with family all night.
She's so cute.
She even tries to explain the getaway car.
She stated that she didn't have any knowledge of the shooting, that a friend of hers had asked to borrow her car. She had given it to her, and she hadn't returned with the car.
The police don't believe her.
Geraldine Smith's vehicle was processed by the Chicago Police Mobile Crime Lab, and Eddie Williams' fingerprints were recovered.
Come on, tell us what you know.
Geraldine and her two helpers are charged with murder.
You killed her, didn't you?
Under questioning, Geraldine admits nothing.
Geraldine Smith is probably one of the most cold-blooded, calculating murder offenders that I've ever had to interview.
The hired killers are much easier to crack.
It was you that killed her.
No! Eddie shot her. I was just the driver.
It wasn't long before Marva and Eddie told the police who was behind the plan, that Geraldine was paying them to do the murder.
In 1989, Marva Golden pleads guilty to first-degree murder and is sentenced to 20 years. Eddie Williams also pleads guilty and is serving life.
You would think they would be the hardened ones, but they readily confessed their parts in the crime.
Geraldine Smith is found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder.
She had no qualms with paying $500 to have somebody killed in front of their children.
In 1991, she is sentenced to death, later commuted to life in prison.
The judge said she had a malignant heart, and there's no pill for that.
17 years later, in 2008, Geraldine Smith is released on parole. Louia McDonald tried to lead two lives. His enraged lover destroyed them both.
Geraldine Smith committed murder because she was jealous. And that's a story as old as time.
There's more than one way to get a man.
Michelle wanted to wield power over other people.
Her first.
But sometimes help is needed.
She was being Michelle, the sexual goddess.
When what you want is not yours.
Stay away from my husband.
She'd do anything to step on people who got in her way.
Come on, be a man. Do it.
In the late 1990s, around the clubbing scene of Adelaide, Australia, 25-year-old Michelle Burgess is earning quite the reputation.
Michelle's well known for her bedroom eyes. There are few men that she's laid eyes on who have not felt her bedroom eyes.
I think she knew what she was doing was not quite right, but she didn't care, and she clearly didn't care who knew.
Michelle can give anyone a good time, except perhaps her husband, 28-year-old Darren Burgess.
What's your excuse this time?
Michelle enjoyed living a fantasy life.
What's that?
Oh, I got pinched.
You think this is funny?
Whereby she's stepping out of being Michelle the boring housewife and mum and being Michelle the sexual goddess.
Don't you laugh at me. Your kid's been up waiting for you. Has it been the footy team?
Oh, get over it. No, get over it.
I will only put up with so much.
Darren wasn't enough for her. She had a number of affairs when they were married.
Darren Burgess was an extremely loyal man, perhaps a little naive, a little too forgiving, but essentially a really good man at heart who really unfortunately married a dangerous sexual predator.
Everyone seems fair game to Michelle. Even her husband's boss, 38-year-old Kevin Matthews.
You can't wait, can you?
Kevin Matthews was a person who liked to be the life of the party. He was the big man around the town.
Kevin wasn't a particularly attractive man. She saw him as perhaps a little bit powerful, as of a higher station than what her husband was, and she coveted him.
Darren is accustomed to Michelle's wild ways. But Kevin's wife, Carolyn, is horrified by this woman's brazen moves.
Cover up.
Come on, Darren, settle down.
You keep out of this. If you act like this, I'm going home.
Come on.
What are you all looking at? I'm going then. That's what you want?
Bye.
Each of them was married to other people, so of course this normally is activity that people hide. Not Kevin and Michelle. They were proud of it.
Michelle and Kevin start an affair. And Carolyn's shame deepens.
Hello?
Stay away from my husband.
If Michelle feels any guilt, she doesn't show it.
She was very, very selfish. Life was all about Michelle Burgess, and nobody else mattered other than her and what she wanted.
By January 2001, Darren reaches the breaking point. His wife's affair with the boss is the final insult.
You think I'm an idiot? What's this? I'm out of here. It's over.
What?
Darren saw that his wife and his boss had been exchanging text messages and phone calls by the hundred. And that was the last straw for him. He finally decided to leave.
3 months later, Darren moves on, finding a girlfriend who treats him with respect.
The moment another woman came onto the scene, she turned very nasty.
Please come home. Please, I miss you so much.
Michelle doesn't want Darren, but she doesn't want anyone else to have him.
Look, Michelle, we've been through this. You've got to move on.
She was just one of these people who is selfish, self-centered, and it's all about them and nobody else.
Yeah, move on.
Is she with you?
Even though his ex, Michelle, had been carrying on with pretty much any guy that walked by, she threatened Darren and the new girlfriend that if they continue seeing each other, they were dead.
You tell her to watch her back.
Michelle doesn't like playing second fiddle to anyone.
And you better watch yours.
And over on the affluent side of town, her lover, Kevin, is staying with his family.
Jeez, you did kids with all the soft drink on? I've ruined me beer.
His wife, Carolyn, refuses to have their life torn apart by a brazen hussy.
She had 3 children, she had a husband, she had a happy life in the suburbs. She was not going to have this woman destroy it.
But what Michelle wants, Michelle gets.
Michelle Burgess was a selfish, self-centered greedy person who thought of nothing but herself. She had the ability to be able to frighten people, that's for sure.
2001, Adelaide, Australia. 27-year-old Michelle Burgess has two problems in her life: her ex-husband and her lover's wife. But she has a plan.
David Key had just been released from prison and was a drug addict and a small-time criminal and a man prone to violence.
She offers a hitman $25,000 to murder her lover's wife and another $25,000 to kill her ex-husband.
Michelle wanted to wield power over other people, and she did.
She even draws up contracts, so there are no mistakes.
Her first. Yeah, that's her.
Yeah.
Then him.
You
Do it?
Yeah.
Michelle plans a new life with her lover, Kevin Matthews. But that doesn't mean she'll stay faithful to him.
Michelle couldn't keep her hands off any man. Not only was she having what turned out to be a very dangerous liaison with Kevin, she also became sexually involved with the hitman.
On July 12, 2001, Michelle and her hitman drive to Kevin's house. When Kevin takes his children to the video store, they seize the moment.
Is your name Carolyn Matthews?
Yes.
Is this your picture?
Yes.
Is this your address?
Yes. Get in! What are you doing?
Caroline had no idea why her husband's lover and this strange, angry, violent man have suddenly come into her house.
Do it! Kill her. Do it! Do it! Come on, be a man! You won't get paid. No, you don't. Please, come on!
Shut up!
She was not a violent woman. I don't think she actually knew how to defend herself. You can only imagine how terrifying that would have been.
Let's go! Come on!
Michelle creates a horror movie in suburban Adelaide.
So we'll watch the comedy first, right?
Tragically, the first to see it are the victims' children.
Mom! Daniel, go to your room.
What?
Go to your room now. Shane, call 000. Do it!
They arrive home less than an hour after the brutal attack.
My mum's been hurt really bad.
There was a lot of blood everywhere.
The family struggles to do what they can,
Is she responding? No.
but nothing can save Carolyn.
She was stabbed 41 times. Carolyn Matthews had died a very hard and brutal death.
Kevin Matthews seems grief-stricken, but police are soon tipped off to his not-so-secret affair with Michelle Burgess.
You've been having an affair, Mr. Matthews?
No, I haven't, but I've been accused.
And when they check her phone records, they're stunned.
Michelle and Kevin contacted each other by phone 16 times the day of the murder.
She rang Kevin and told him that the job was done.
And that it was safe for him to return home with his boys.
Kevin was in on the murder.
Daniel, go to your room now, go!
And he let his children discover their mother's body.
It shows what a cowardly, craven dog of a man he really was.
It's almost beyond comprehension to think that a father would allow his young children to walk in and find their mother stabbed to death, but that's exactly what Kevin did.
Kevin also knew exactly how to fund this murder.
Carolyn had a $100,000 life insurance policy.
The money from that was going to go towards paying out the contract.
Meanwhile, Michelle's promiscuity leads police straight to her hitman. Under surveillance, she's seen cavorting with David Key. He's skipped parole, so police bring him in.
That day when they arrested Key, they found one of the murder contracts, the contract on Carolyn's life, in Key's wallet.
Michelle and Kevin were so intent on getting the job done, they were very careless.
Handwriting analysis shows Michelle wrote the contracts. She denies it all. But when David Key learns he's not the love of Michelle's life, he gives evidence against her.
He realised that he was just a simpleton that had been used by someone a bit smarter than him.
In 2003, David Key pleads guilty to murder and is sentenced to 30 years. Kevin Matthews is found guilty of murder and receives life without parole.
He wore this mask of decency of being an upright father and businessman and husband, but he was none of that.
Michelle Burgess also gets life for murder. Her twisted heart blighted so many lives.
3 boys don't have a mother. They have nothing but contempt for their father. Another family have lost their daughter. It's a damn crying shame.
Michelle's power over men was hard to resist, but everyone who fell for her would ultimately regret it.
Michelle liked to destroy everything in her path. Every life she could damage, she was up for it. Michelle is a deadly woman.
For these deadly women, revenge was a dish best served hot. Camilla Brown wanted to protect her kids. Instead, they lost both parents. Geraldine Smith couldn't bear to be the other woman. And Michelle Burgess showed her lover's wife who's the boss. It was the cruelest form of payback when they exacted lover's revenge.